Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens, Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram. This is fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 557. Wow, I have got one hell of an episode for you guys tonight. Somebody I have tons and tons of respect for. I really doubt he needs an introduction, but we'll do this anyway. Mr. NV Closet Grower, how you doing, my friend?
I am doing
Hello,
great,
I'm
and I
Eagle.
really appreciate you inviting me on today, Eagle, and I look forward to having our conversations.
Man, I do. I've got tons of respect for you. I've been following you for a long time. You're an amazing grower. You're one of the original YouTube OGs, just as far as instructional videos, and of course, the YouTube Roundtable. You're a cup winner and all around amazing guy. And it is an honor to have you here with me tonight. So thank you very much for hanging out, my friend.
Of course, again, thank you for having me. So I look forward to smoking all sorts of weed, interacting with the chat, which I actually need to get open on my other window here, and just having a good time. I got at least a couple hours to hang out with you guys, so shit, let's get into it. What you want to talk about? I'm here to talk some shit, man.
Well, I hope to learn a little bit more about you, some of the shit that maybe we haven't heard or whatever. Uh, I like to start right from the get. When and where did cannabis enter your life? And yeah, let's start with it.
Okay, yeah, start from the beginning. Well, the first time I smoked cannabis, I got some from a guy on the school bus, and I was 12 years old. And it was delicious. And then my mom found out and slapped me. Um, where this story actually gets kind of fun, though, is my first time smoking probably involved my first time ever growing also. You see, because it was shitty brickweed. This has got to be 2000-ish, 99. No, I was 12, so 98, 97-ish, somewhere in there. And yeah, no, fuck, I can't even think now. 84, 96, 96, 97. So I get some weed from this dude on the bus, and it had seeds in it, as brickweed did back in the days. And I break some up and I put it in this little bowl, and I'm smoking on the side of my house. I threw some of those seeds out though. Well, my brother caught me smoking, told my mom. I got in trouble, whatever. I was 12 and smoking weed. I kind of don't blame her. But on the side note, like it was in the spring, and a couple weeks later, I see a little plant growing up out of the side of my yard. And me at 12 years old, I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do with this? That looks like a weed plant, though. I knew what a weed leaf looked like, and I seen the first true leaves coming out. I was like, oh shit. So I pulled that plant, right, and my parents had some potting soil in their garage, like some Miracle-Gro potting soil. Mind you, I grew up in northern Michigan, way up in the woods, in a small town called Oscoda, right on the Lake Huron Sunrise side coastline. And so I go out in the woods not far from my parents' house, and I dug a little hole and filled that hole with potting soil and put that plant in there. Sure enough, man, by summer, that plant was about 3.5 foot tall. And then unfortunately, the deer came and stripped every fucking leaf off that goddamn plant, and it never made it to flower. But that was my very first experience both smoking and growing, which was pretty entertaining. So after that, though, as I got older, I ended up getting into selling weed on occasion, and also a little bit of growing here and there. I had a buddy of mine that, long story short, the house he was staying at was next to some swampland. We had these logs you could cross the wet part of the swamp and get out to an island. This island had a big ass clearing in it, right? Like probably 30 yards wide and like 50 yards north to south. And on the north end of that clearing, we would just fucking load it up with plants. So we'd be smoking blunts all spring and just throwing seeds in the flower garden, and anything that started growing, we would transplant out there. Next thing you know, I helped out with a few years of outdoor crops in my late teens, early 20s. And that's really where I started growing, was outdoors in Michigan in the swamps, and that sort of thing. And a lot of the knowledge I got, because I didn't come from a traditional weed family. I wasn't taught how to grow weed or anything by any peers. I learned a lot of it online. The internet was new and budding at the time, and there was a lot of the, like message boards and forum boards, and the old cannabis forum boards and such. And I researched on them and at least got the basics to get some harvests done. So that's where I started growing. I guess we could continue on from there though to what started to get me popular within the cannabis industry. After a little while, I had, gone to jail a couple different misdemeanors for weed. I had a half pound and got caught one time, and, another time with some ounces and some other things. And long story short, I only have misdemeanors, so I'm not a felon, thank God. But yeah, I was kind of sick of getting in trouble for weed. So I later moved to Las Vegas, and around the time I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, they had came out with their first round of medical licensing, so you could be a medical grower there. They still didn't have any recreational weed at the time, but there was a couple medical dispensaries that were, not really sanctioned by the state, but kind of. And then there was some medical grows at the time, so I became a medical patient, so that way I could grow. And yeah, then I started growing in a closet in Las Vegas. And about a year, 2 years into that is when I first started making videos on YouTube, just showing my closet grow. And some of my first videos were actually older videos I had recorded, just showing it. So yeah, then it all blew up from there. And that's around that time is when you started watching me, Eagle. So that's, pretty much everything up until what we could always extrapolate further for the rest of the audience.
So
sorry, I need to roll a joint as well.
Starting out in northern Michigan there. Shit, I'm let's see here. I think I'm an hour south of Oscoda, if that. So
okay, I probably know exactly where you're at, somewhere over near Pinconning or Standish.
Roscommon.
Roscommon, there you go. Okay, Roscommon. I know exactly where that's at. I've been to Roscommon plenty of times. In fact, one time I was off the highway not far from Roscommon, dude. I seen a whole herd of elk. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the fuck are these guys doing here south of West Branch? But yeah, whatever.
So that's not easy conditions to get started in up here, that's for sure. But obviously made it work. So one of the first videos here in Michigan, first YouTube videos?
No, the first YouTube videos were after I started a mini closet grow. And what was pretty entertaining about that and what people liked about it was its size and scale. I fit a 600 watt HPS inside a 2x3 tent that was inside a 2.5 by 3 foot coat closet. It was literally a coat closet in my living room, and I made ducting so that way 2/3 of the bottom of the door would pull in as an intake to the bottom of the tent. And then I had a 4-inch fan and filter running full speed that would exhaust back down the front of the tent and back out under the door. I could have people in my living room and they didn't even know I was fucking growing weed in the coat closet right across from them. It was great. So some of my very first videos were a super micro grow doing that. And the reason I got into YouTube actually is I got to thank one of the original founders of North Genetics, a guy called Brookfielder. He was doing a lot of breeding on YouTube back then, and this is what, 2014, 2013, something like that, 2012, something like that. So he was doing a lot of breeding on YouTube back then, and he was doing contests for people to win some seeds, and he would send them out to you. Mind you, he was from Canada, so he's just fuck it, just send them wherever, right? And I ended up winning a contest for Smurf berries before Smurf berries was a strain made by North Genetics, before North Genetics was a company, right? The very first original F1 Smurf berries made by Brookfield. I won a contest on his channel for that, and I wanted to show him me growing those seeds in my closet. And that was the whole reason I made my YouTube channel. And that is the main reason why it has such a horrible name for branding. Like NVCLOSETMEDGROWER is a big, long, cumbersome, pain in the ass name for an actual business. And it's because it was never meant to be a business. It was meant to be me, a guy I got his seeds. So what happened from there, though, is I would grow a few plants here and there, and my plants were fairly healthy and yielding decent for such a small area. So people would start to ask me questions, right? And I would just start to answer in the chat more and more and more. And every time someone would ask me a question, I would go out of my way to research it more. So I started self-researching cannabis to a rather intense level, like 4 to 6 hours a day. I'm just sitting there nonstop studying horticulture and botany. And then that got to the point I was answering a lot of people's questions. People were happy with that. So I then decided to make a 7-part series where every time I touched the seed, I recorded it and I explained not only what I was doing it, but why I felt like doing that, why I thought I should be doing that. And that ended up being the How to Grow series that got my channel to blow the fuck up. And that series to this day has a few million views between the 7 parts. One video got taken off YouTube. I reposted it on a different streaming site only because, you know, I hold grudges. So, but yeah, that's where it started to blow up at. And I guess the continuation of the story from there is that seemed to help a lot of people, but I didn't have a lot of credibility. You know, I was a home grower growing in a closet, and even though I was giving out good advice and learning botany at a somewhat advanced level, I wasn't I didn't have any credibility. I didn't have any degrees in it. I didn't have any, you know, I didn't come from a weed background, so I hadn't been growing since childhood or nothing like that. So I decided to start entering some cups. And that's when I ended up winning Las Vegas Hemp Fest and then Las Vegas Bus Cup and then 2 different Jack Herer Cups after that. And long story short, by the time I got like my second and third and fourth cup win in, people quit talking shit. There was no more he doesn't know what he's talking about. It was more he's got full credibility, and my YouTube channel was starting to get to a decent size. So, and obviously there was more publicity based things going on after that, like GrowTube Roundtable that was ran by Dago. I was a panelist on that more or less from the start. I think I was on like the 3rd episode and on or something like that for 100 ass episodes and all sorts of other fun situations. But that was kind of my journey through YouTube and what somewhat brought me to today. I will say the last few years I haven't been as gung-ho about YouTube. It seems every time I post a video, then I get channel strikes on it. And I don't want my old content to be deleted, so I quit posting content. Because I'm afraid if I post, they give me channel strikes, then they go back and delete one of my old to give me a 3rd strike. Then all my old content's gone. Some of the old hash content, the old grow series. I was working in different grow stores, and for one of them for sweet leaf nutrients, HydroSweet hydroponics. It's no longer open, but I was managing that store for a while, and I used to do like, you know, talks like what do you call them, like cultivation classes, just allowing people from the public to go in, and I recorded some of those and posted those on my YouTube account. And at this point, I feel like I have so much information on my YouTube account, it's not worth me trying to get more information out to possibly have it deleted. Does that make sense?
As another creator, it very much does. I'm constantly downloading my episodes back from YouTube and keeping them on a separate hard drive because I'm in constant fear of the same thing. Uh, but I find it very disheartening for somebody that's like yourself that's put in so much time and actually has an instruction or informational channel with good information on it, that they'd be still giving you strikes and shit when and again, nothing against my show or anything, but they let me fucking come on here night after night and do this. And, you know, I've yet to get a strike, and I've pushed a lot of envelopes, and I'm
Yeah,
surprised. But I find it
I
just,
don't
I
get it,
think
man.
it's very, you and Med Grower one, and the rest of them, it's all you had risking channels, but his shit, he had his taken down not too long ago. And the rest of you guys that's had them taken down in the past and had to fight for them to get them back.
And
That's silly
let's
shit.
also face it, it's some bullshit anyways. When we first started posting to YouTube, we weren't worried about channel strikes. We were worried about getting found out and going to prison federally. You know what I mean? Like, it was sure I was in somewhere when I started posting. Technically, I had a medical license. I was in a medical state, but this is also in the first few years of any state outside of California even having medical laws. You know what I mean? Like, no one trusted that. The first
Oh,
year
that
and a half, 2 years of my YouTube, I didn't show my face, you know? So it is what it
yeah,
is.
definitely ballsy times. That's for sure. And that's again why we owe so much credit to you, a lot of you guys from started all this way back in the day, man. You guys took a huge fucking risk to teach the masses. You know what I mean? A huge
Yeah.
fucking risk.
And I got to give homage to those that came before me. Like I said, all those forum boards, man. Like think of like the late Subcool. He used to post on those forum boards. When I was 18, 19, I read articles that were wrote by Subcool, who then later in life I meet through social medias and the cannabis networks. So I mean, things come around in blessings, man, and you always got to make sure you step up and acknowledge those that came before you. So
Man, I've got tons of respect for Sub. He was a good friend of mine, and I do my best to keep his memory in the forefront of a lot of people. I think he deserves that respect. He laid a lot of ground. I mean, it was Sub was one of the original OGs that kind of started this type of forum. But man, uh, you guys sure grabbed the ball and kept it rolling. That's for sure. So, much thanks to you guys. So, what were some of the first strains you started working with? Let's, I guess, rewind before the YouTube. What was the, what was some of the
shit.
first?
Most of that was fucking Mexican sativa brickweed, dude. It was fucking because we were way up in northern Michigan pushing pounds of brickweed when I was a teenager, right? I mean, maybe that's not normal for most teenagers, but me and a few of my friends it was, all right? So we would just, like I said, we would roll up mad blunts. And when we rolled the blunt of brickweed, in each blunt, you're pulling out 10 to 20 seeds. So we would just throw them bitches in the garden, and as soon as they would fucking germinate, we'd put them out in the back. So the first genetics I ever grew, I don't know what the fuck they were. I know they came in bricks from Detroit. That's what I know. So
Right. So, well, I guess what would be the first real strain that you could remember you got your hands on?
well, I do remember smoking a lot of good old school strains back in the day because even though we were selling a lot of bullshit, and then I would use those genetics to grow out in the woods, and usually our outdoor would turn out better than the brick packs we would bring in from out of state and shit. But they, I remember smoking. I remember smoking some GDP in the late 90s. I remember smoking some NL number 5. I remember smoking skunk. In fact, skunk number 2 was one of the first really potent hydroponic strains I smoked when my first year at college. I was like 19. And this dude had a quarter pound of fucking every bud was identical. These like brownish greens, insanely sticky ass buds. Skunk number 2. And dude, he opened that jar and the whole fucking dorms at Lake Superior State stunk like goddamn weed. And that shit was pretty epic. I see. We smoked a bunch of White Widow. Some of the old hazes, like, because what we used to do is I used to drive down to Detroit and I would pick up, between me and a couple friends, we would pick up 3 to 5 pounds of brickweed, and then we would also pick up like 2 to 4 ounces of high grade, and we'd smoke all the high grade and sell all the bullshit. So, that's kind of how it worked in the early 2000s, I guess.
Same. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fire growing up here in the northern part of Michigan these days.
Yes.
You said, I don't know any too many teenagers. I dare say that's probably a little bit more common these days.
Probably so, man. There's a lot less risk involved. Like I said, I had to do some county time over that shit. So
Yeah, it did get a little scary up here at one point. They come through, and I think, let's see here, 5 years ago, like 2018, and kind of cleaned out all the provisioning centers and stuff up here. It was a little scary at that point. And again, that's just like 5 years ago. That wasn't like beginning days, like YouTube days when you were starting out. That was the risk then was way bigger than.
Yeah, good times though, man. I'm glad to be alive, glad not to be in prison, glad to be growing weed, glad to have a bright future ahead of me. So it is what it is.
So I can't help but wonder. You were talking about, and I've never really kind of seen it myself. You were like, you mentioned people doubting your credibility, and I don't see that myself, but I'm not on the other side.
That hasn't
Do you
happened
think
in
it was
years,
just
man.
because of the size of the grow? I mean, actually, do you think that's
Yes.
where it stemmed from?
Yes, because if you look at things about 7, 8 years ago, at the time, there was not many people growing super small scale in a closet. They were either black market flipping rooms or they were guerrilla growing outdoors. But there wasn't a whole lot of like small scale tent growers and closet growers and things. So I kind of fit into a niche that not many other people were part of. And honestly, that's one reason why my YouTube channel became popular too. It's especially popular in places in Canada and honestly in the UK. I have quite a bit of viewership out of the United Kingdom, even though weed's not necessarily legal there, just because they have small living space. They're used to using 600-watt lights and fucking tent size spaces. And that's how they were growing 8, 10 years ago. So when they seen my content, it just naturally clicked for those markets. So but it was a little different for the US because, like I said, the black market grows at the time then and previous were either outdoor guerrilla grows or they were flip a room inside and try to get your money. You know what I mean? It wasn't a and I always started growing as a hobbyist grower. I'll say my outdoor ones when I was young, those were, yeah, produce as much as we can and sell it, but also we smoked a lot of that. A good part of it was we wanted good to smoke. When I started growing indoors in Nevada, it was all about I want better weed to smoke. So I started investing in fucking a mini setup so I could grow enough weed for me. And I still smoke a lot of weed, so it was a good investment.
You absolutely were crushing it. That's why I don't understand is, for the space, for what you were doing, for the intent, you know what I mean? You were crushing it. So I don't know how there could be any, doubt, I guess.
I don't know, because there's a lot of things to hate on, man. I would, at the time, especially early in YouTube, I would, I took a lot of different sponsorships and a lot of different things like that. So people would look at me, oh, you're just doing this for corporate reasons, or they'd look at me and say, oh, you can't grow shit, you're using a blurple light, or and I would get that sort of hate. But you're right, I got far more positivity than I ever got hate. But also at the same time, like I said, once I started winning a cup or two, really after my second cup, it was by the time 2017 came, I didn't ever have issues with credibility again. But previous to that, I used to, I don't know, take a fair amount of shit. Now, at the same time, though, I had so many positive people like you that had been following me and looked up to what I was doing, even on a small scale, that I made this rule for myself where if someone was talking shit in my chat, whether it was in YouTube chat or Instagram on any of my things, I would leave it for at least 24 hours and I would not get back to them for 24 hours. And you know what would happen the majority of the time in that 24 hours? Someone that appreciates me would go back and start smashing on whoever left the negative comment. And I would never even have to deal with it. And to this day, I get very little hate. I get I don't know why my shit gets stuck in the YouTube algorithms and gets kicked out, but I truly don't believe it's from people like, you know, flagging my shit or doing that sort of thing. I get very little hate. I get a lot of positivity. Quite a few years back, I got, like I said, they looked at me more with a lack of credibility and talked shit, but it wasn't ever a hate. It wasn't ever a, oh, we don't like what you're doing. It was, you're not as good as you think you are. It was those kind of comments. You know what I mean?
So easy to throw stones when you're not out there taking the risk. That's the way I see that, a lot of that. Again, it's another creator. I'm always wowed at the time some of the people take to leave some of them comments. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, it was really that bad. You know, I got under your skin with whatever I did that bad. You had to take time. You know, I don't delete the comments or address them, but I leave them up just because I believe people will recognize the name. You know what I mean? People will recognize the name in the comments and go, "Oh, that's a knucklehead." You know what I mean? They instantly like out and brand
Yes.
themselves as a knucklehead.
And sometimes it actually does lead to constructive criticism. There is sometimes where people say something mean. Then someone else will reply back to him like, what the fuck you doing that for? Envy's a nice guy. And then he'll be like, well, what I really meant is he should have said this. He was wrong in what he was talking about. And that leads me back into more research and overall a greater understanding of the knowledge I was trying to portray anyways. So sometimes it can turn critical, and that's another good reason to leave negative comments up. But for the most part, you know, there's still people that hate just to be dicks because they can on the internet too. So you never know.
So I guess fast forward here, you know, greatly appreciate you as the panel type show, the Grow to Roundtable. It's another milestone I think all of us appreciated while it was up and running. It was a great source of knowledge and gave us all look forward something to do every Friday night, hang out, place to hang out just like here. A gathering of all growers to be able to just hang out and talk and smoke and it
Yeah,
was a good time.
I will agree. It was a very good time. I mean, all good things come to an end, but I made a lot of good friendships because of that show too. A lot of the people on that show I still talk to this day. You know, I still talk to Growmouse. I still talk to fucking Wolverine and Loki, and like I'm still on good terms. And oh yeah, and Justin Medgrower 1, I talked to him. I was just DMing with him fucking an hour ago. You know what I mean? Like I still hang out and talk to a lot of the same people that I had met on that show. So it was definitely a blessing both for the community and for me personally. It was a good growth experience. And honestly, having that many experts that all looked at cannabis in different facets, but all had our direct knowledge within it turned into very productive conversations, both for the viewers and for us as panelists. So there was nothing but blessings being involved in that show for the length in which it ran. That's the truth.
Right, right now. So I can't help but ask, as somebody again that helped start a wave of shit on YouTube, and it really did, man. You guys started something that became pretty fucking big on YouTube. You should. That's the other funny thing I think about that is YouTube. Cannabis has brought so much traffic to YouTube. I can't believe YouTube has any hate for cannabis. To be honest with you.
There's a difference between bringing viewership and bringing monetizable, advertisable content. They can make money on the second. On the first, they can only make money if it's monetizable and advertisable. Advertisers started complaining they didn't want their ads on weed videos, and that led to the first YouTube adpocalypse, where they fucked everybody's money and kicked out a lot of gun tubers, weed tubers, all that sort of shit. There was a couple rounds of it throughout the years. During the second round, actually, my channel got deleted. YouTube deleted my channel for 2 months and then gave me my channel back. Never said a word about it. I even tried to email them asking, like, the fuck? Like, why did y'all do that? Never gave an explanation. I think from a legal standpoint, they're purposely not saying anything. But, it is what it is.
I think some advertisers are, again, not so worried about being associated with it. I think they're more along the lines of wanting to follow the data these days. That's what everybody's watching. That's where we want to be.
Yeah,
I
for
think
the
the
most
morals
part.
have fucking came
But
down a little bit.
again, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, things were slightly different. Like, if you were fucking the advertising firm that was in charge of Huggies along with a bunch of other shit, you don't want your diaper advertisement coming on necessarily a weed video, or on really their weed was a side product of what they were going against. They were actually going against like violent videos and like the Taliban training videos, because back in the day all that shit used to be on YouTube too, like straight fucked up shit. And so they went real hard against that because a lot of advertisers got mad about that. Now anything that was kind of in the gray area got lumped in with it, such as legal shooting videos. You know, people are legally shooting their guns, but it could be dangerous. They didn't know what to do, so those videos got fucked with. Weed, on the other hand, was legal within states. Most of us recording videos were doing it legally, but at the same time, federally, it wasn't. Most of the places in the world, it wasn't. So it kind of got thrown in that gray area. They decided, like, if we're going to go with this, we're going to get rid of everything the advertisers won't pay us to be on, not just some of it. And that's kind of how that started. It wasn't necessarily only a directed attack at cannabis. It was a directed attack at any content they couldn't monetize correctly, or that their advertisers, multi-million-dollar ad firms, would complain about being monetized over top of.
So, what is your opinion on like the predecessors? What do you think of us? Today kind of cannabis YouTubers, and there's a ton of us.
There's a lot of good ones, man. In fact, there's a ton of good channels out there that are new ones. And I think what the big difference is now is people are getting into it with and thought that, hey, I need to be good at video production. I need to be good at this. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. We were fucking growers that were just like, hey, let's show our grow. Grab my fucking cell phone and show y'all. You know what I mean? So now there's a lot better production quality amongst the majority of the cannabis channels. It's a lot smoother and easier to watch. We have better quality equipment, and the people know how to use it so much better. So even though some of the information might be the same, some of it's all basic botany stuff that hasn't changed, some of it has. Some bro science has been disproven, some bro science has been proven since back in the day. So there's excellent content out now with far better video production quality than there used to be. Now it's also a little different market because they know to tiptoe a little more careful. They know what's going to get their channels kicked off of YouTube and what's going to give them channel strikes. Whereas back in the day, we didn't know. We just posted it up there, seeing if YouTube got mad. You know what I mean? So I think it's definitely changed, and both in the better and the worse. I think YouTube has, because of its algorithms, changed it so a lot of people like me that don't care as much about the video production quality. I like it a little bit. I like my videos to look okay, but that's not my primary goal. People like me have a much harder time because if I just sit on there raw, smoke blunts, take fat dabs, and tell y'all what the fuck's going on with my plant, YouTube doesn't want that. But if I make it flashy and have a podcast or something along those lines, YouTube don't mind so much if I'm just sitting here talking with you. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's at least my experience within it. So to answer the original question, though, I think the video production quality is way better, and there's a broader range of people out now, and there's a lot of great content. So I think everyone in the weed community should continue to look at YouTube as one of the better places to find cannabis content. Of course, it's also YouTube, so don't take everything with a grain of salt. All right. Not everything's perfect. Even I admit there's mistakes in some of my old videos. I didn't learn everything perfect, or I now know things better than I did then. You know what I mean? So
I'm not that guy. I'm going to tell you right now, MB. I'm not that guy. First of all, any garden updates I do, are one shot and done. If anybody's ever seen one, I might stutter through that. I might say fuck a couple of times. It's the most rawest upload that you could possibly get.
Good.
And
That's
then
the way
on
it
top
should
of
be.
that,
That's how all my old fucking weekly updates and shit were when I was vlogging my garden.
I think that's the way they should be. We're fucking human. You know what I mean? I think in polishing it all and all that, I just think it's nice for the eye. But we all, like I said, we all make mistakes, fucking sometimes shit ain't perfect. I think people appreciate that. And as far as like video editing and shit, that's why I do this. Well, I like the feeling of the chat, watching it. It's really weird. Obviously, you've done this. So, have you ever guys ever like recorded an episode and then uploaded it? It's kind of like it's weird. It's like doing it in an empty hall. I know that sounds weird to maybe somebody that hasn't do this, but as long as that chat's there, it honestly feels like there's a present there. And then when you're not doing it live and you're uploading it, there's so much different of a feel to it.
Yes,
You
I can
agree?
I can fully agree with that. Especially being that I had, kind of an organic growing YouTube channel. A lot of the people in these different YouTube chats, I recognize a lot of these names from years ago. You know what I mean? So it feels like friends are coming back to visit me, even though they're not people I physically know. And and that gives a much more positive vibe. It gives a much more appreciated vibe. You don't. I feel almost when I record a podcast show with someone and there's no one there to watch it while it's getting recorded, I feel almost a little bit of anxiety. Like, how is the show going to do? Are people going to like it? How is it going to be perceived? Am I going to hit my talking points right? And if I'm the guest, like, how are they going to edit it? Are they going to take out certain things that I felt should have been in? Or, I have those kind of thoughts in my head. Whereas when it's live, I get those feedbacks immediately. I can look at the chat. If I'm struggling for a word or a brand name or something, sometimes a guy in the chat will fucking pop it up before it comes in my head. You know what I mean? And it can, I think it helps with the organic flow of the show. I think it's good entertainment for those that do show up live. And it's nice to be able to have the direct interaction with people so that way you can get to know them on an acquaintance level, even though they are just a text name. You know what I mean? Like I've seen these people so many times in the chat. I'm not going to start with names because then I would have to continue, but I will say I've seen at least half a dozen to a dozen names in the chat so far that I've seen for years. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, it does get a little bit of crazy. I got a little squirreled there about contents and everything like that. I don't, that's, you brought up another point is the editing part of it. I like people to know when they walk away from this, just like you said, they're on point with what was left. There's no question if I'll edit whatever into something goofy and then air it. That's one aspect I appreciate as well.
Yep, and on a side note, I don't want to talk shit about channels like that either. Like Mr. Grow It, Chris is actually a good friend of mine. I knew him personally in Las Vegas. He lives in Las Vegas, and I've known him for years. Like he's a super great friend of mine. By the way, I also owe him a show, so you're not the only one I owe to Show Eagle. But he edits his shows, but his podcast shows like that and does them as one-on-one interviews and then premieres them. But he does an excellent job. Chris is incredibly good at video production. He's very smart with actual cannabis growth, and I've actually known the guy for years. So I guess it also depends on where you're at. If I'm doing a show with him, I wouldn't feel so bad about how he's going to edit it because I know he has the credibility and done it so many times and does a great job. And he's someone I respect. If I'm doing it with someone random and it's completely getting edited, or I'm one of many on a panel and it's getting edited, that feels even weirder because you never know where you're going to be chopped in and out of. You know what I mean? So I guess it also has to do with who the content creator is and your comfortability with their style of platform. So, but I like being here, Eagle. Obviously, I'm sitting here bullshitting. You've barely got in a few words the entire time. I'm just telling stories, but that's what we're here for, right?
They're the stories they want to hear, my friend. They're the stories I want to hear. So I want to fucking bring up something I remember from a while back ago that will probably make you laugh. Roach turps.
I still got them around here somewhere. I'm not gonna find them, but if I ever meet you, if you ever come to my house, Eagle, I will try to find them and pull them out just for you.
Oh man, I do so remember you pressing out those fucking roaches into some rosin.
Yeah, for those that don't know, I made a comedic video quite a few years ago, and I was one of the first people in record of doing this. I knew of one guy that had an Instagram post previous to me doing this, and that was it. That was the only time I've ever heard of this done. But I had jars full of roaches because, old broke me used to save my roaches, and then I started growing for years, and I never ran out of weed again. So I just had a habit of saving roaches, but not running out of weed. So I never smoked the roaches. So I had like 3-4 jars of roaches just sitting around. So I decided to pull these beautifully aged roaches out and press them on my rosin press. And it was the most gloriously disgusting video I think I've ever been involved in. But I've gotten a few other YouTubers like Pedro's Grow Room and, Medically Fit and a couple other buddies of mine to hit those roach terps before too. And I assure you, they are disgusting. That shit is not good. Do not press roaches into rosin. Or if you do, like, use it for edibles or something. Don't fucking dab that shit. As someone that did it, do not, just so you know.
I remember watching you fucking just take off running after hitting that shit. Just oh shit.
Yeah, I started gagging. I almost threw up. Like you can see it on camera. I gag and like turn off camera and gag. And I had a trash can next to me. I didn't throw up, but it stayed down after that. But yeah, no, that was a legit gag. I was about to throw up from hitting fucking roach rosin. Yeah, don't do that. Just don't do that. It's a bad idea. Very bad idea.
If I remember right, you headed to a cup with a dare, basically.
No one took me up on
the
it.
balls.
No one took me up on it. I asked multiple people too, and lots of people ran into me. It was the one and only time they did a High Times Cup in Las Vegas, right? And I made this roach rosin a month before that. So, oh yeah, Pedro did hit it twice. But sorry, I was looking at chat. So either case, I went out and because I was based out of Las Vegas and my content was like actively super popular and growing at the time, dude, I got recognized by so many people. It was a very humbling experience seeing so many faces that appreciated my content and directly told them like I helped them grow better weed or I helped them grow weed they helped someone with cancer with, or a million good stories, and seeing people directly in person. But I got recognized the most at that event ever, and no one would take a dab of the roach rosin at all. It was tough for me to walk around. I remember once at that, my buddy called me, and he's across the field, right? Like probably 200 yards away, 300 yards away from me, across the High Times field. And we're in the Valley of Fire in what's that, Moapa Valley, the reservation up there. It's a Native American reservation north of Las Vegas. So we're over there. I go to walk across this field. I got recognized 4 different times walking across the field. And because I was a nice guy and I had some of my cup winning Beyond Dream on me, I just smoked out everyone that stopped with me. Next thing I know, I get across the field. I give my buddy a call. I was like, dude, I thought you said you were over here somewhere. He goes, that was 30 fucking minutes ago, man. I'm way the hell over here now. Shit. But it was a good time, man. Ran into so many cool people. Yeah. Let's Let's get back talking about weed, though. Let's like directly about weed. I have some other fun things to talk about. I got a good one. I got some seeds, right, that I need to pop. There's some old school heirloom seeds. When I was young in northern Michigan, northeast part of Michigan, there was a rather famous strain called Pinconning Paralyzer, right, out of the Pinconning area. Have you heard of this strain, Eagle?
I have,
Yeah.
but I don't want to mess with the story.
Okay. Well, here's what I know of this story. All right. Some of the original growers, a good friend of mine I went to high school with, I'm still good friends with him to this day and still keep in touch with him. His father used to sell weed, right? And he was my first weed dealer. Well, that guy, his father, knows one of the original growers that were growing the fields out in the state forest near Pinconning of the paralyzer that was getting harvested every fall. From what he told me, all right, there was in 2002, I think it was, when they were growing out there, their cropping field and their breeding fields. Because what he would do is he would set up a couple hundred plant field to actually grow out and yield, and they would sell the paralyzer all over northern Michigan. It was like a local weed, but incredibly good, super potent, sticky, knock you out weed, and it grew good in the forest of Michigan. To this day, I don't know if it has a piney scent because of the strain or because it was always grown in pine forests, but it used to taste real piney too. So the forest got caught though, and the police went and chopped down the entire fucking crop. Now, off to the side, he had breeder fields. That one of them was a paralyzer breeder field where they would save some of the best males and females, breed them each year, and use those seeds for the next year's crop. So it was a perpetual seed crop they had done for years, from my understanding. At the same time, they also had some new cuts of GDP that had came from the West Coast and had one of those plants in the outdoor near some males of the paralyzer. My buddy's dad got some of those direct seeds from him and had been holding on to them since 2002, since the year those fields got caught. And paralyzer kind of got like, it was hard to find after that point, other than a few people, OGs that had cuts and shit that wouldn't give them out. But a lot of the original paralyzer was hard to get a hold of then, but there was some paralyzer cross GDP seeds. He had about 15 of them, and about 2 years ago, he pulled them out and gave them to me. So now I got to figure out a way to pop some 20-year-old GDP cross Pinconning paralyzer heirloom seeds and hopefully find some phenos in it.
It'd be awesome, man. I'd like to see you fucking resurrect that strain. That'd be pretty awesome. Hopefully it's still floating around anywho's, but it'd be nice to see anybody, you know.
Yeah, I think there's some clone cuts that are still around because people would get clone cuts every once in a while, different growers that knew that group of people, and then it would end up at some of the indoor grows throughout Michigan, but those were far and few back in the day. It was mainly in Michigan, it was mainly outdoor grows, and then people would just ship in brickweed the rest of the year. So at least from my recollection, and I was young at the time, so I wouldn't know as much as the OGs back then, but yeah, that's a pretty interesting story. So I still want to pop those though, and hopefully find some paralyzer dominant crosses.
I hope you do. We need some good pine. Jokingly say dragon fruit. I'm a huge fan of the pine. All right, you're a well-schooled gentleman. Let me throw this by. Obviously, we know environment plays a big key in pheno selection, but I can't. Again, I'm in northern Michigan. Some jokingly say I'm pine blind from being in the middle of the forest, but I think it's like it ain't it. I've had several strains sent to me. I've popped several strains, and in my environment, I can't get in. Yeah, and again, I had a J1 sent to me from the West Coast, Jack Greenstock and Jack. This is pine, brother. Here you go. This is the one you're looking for. Ended up at my porch. I grew it out a few times. And what it expresses to me is a dragon fruit. It's the best I can describe it. And people always laugh.
That sounds
Dragon
delicious,
fruit.
though. I love sweet, fruity strains, so that sounds great to me. But that's a long way from pine, buddy.
Right, right. So what do you think that could be the environmental pressure here that is, making it have such a flip flop? I've grown it in
Uh,
cocoa, I've grown it in soil, you know what I mean? And all the time. And again, this isn't just one cultivar. These are like
every time you
Xmas,
pop it, then that's making
Colombium.
me think maybe there's something wrong with his nose to where he always smells pine. I'm
That's
just
what they're
playing with you.
that's what they're trying to that's what Chad is always jokingly saying, is that I'm just nose blind from it, because just kind of like your house, you know what I mean? You get used to the sense around you, you know what I mean? That's what they try to kind of tell me. But
Yeah, possibly.
I've gave that same smoke to other people, and they a dragon fruit. They berries to a dragon fruit, but not pine is
Yeah, yeah,
expressed.
that's weird. I will say I haven't smoked that strain, so I can't say one way or another, but I like dragon fruit, man. I wouldn't be upset about it regardless. But yeah, that's weird that on the West Coast someone grows it and consistently gets a pine smell and you consistently get dragon fruit. And you're saying that's on multiple different seeds with multiple different phenos and you're getting that same?
Yeah, yeah. I'm growing
Wow.
it under LED. Like I said, cocoa, soil, LED,
Then
HPS.
maybe they are right. Maybe it's just the fact that the pine is a secondary scent or a minor scent in it, but it is there. It's just the fact that Roscommon's a mixed coniferous deciduous forest all around there, and you do have plenty of white pines. Maybe you just don't notice it because it's such a natural scent in the air. I know a little further north of there in Oscoda, where I grew up, we have tons of pine trees. Like up that way, there's pines out the ass. So but I can't. It would be hard to say one way or another why there would be a phenotypic expression that would always dominate towards a certain terpene group. I don't have a good scientific explanation for that, other than genetics. It genetically leaned towards that dragon fruit, and something about your environment is showing that expression better. What that is, I don't know.
At best, I've had somebody say sweet pine, a slight sweet pine, but most would agree like a dragon fruit berry. It's weird. It's ah, yeah. I'd like the pine though. I could, I'd like the pine. I wish I could bring it out somehow.
Well, whenever I get around to popping these paralyzer, if I get any that I really think's piney, I'll have to try to send some out to you. Let you see how it is.
So let's talk about your cup experience. You've had the blessing to win a few cups. Let's talk about what did the prep, the whole experience, if you will, you want to.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that. The first one I won was for the Las Vegas Hemp Fest. Unfortunately, that festival doesn't go on anymore. Has to do with some back end stuff with the guy that was running it, Chili. I don't know, he used to be, it's kind of a long story and I don't want to get it wrong, but he was somehow involved with Sublime and Sublime was suing them and I don't know, a bunch of other weird shit. But he at one point had one of the biggest festivals in Las Vegas for cannabis for like 3 or 4 years straight. And that's where I won Las Vegas Hemp Fest Cup in 2016. Um, and that was fun. I got to meet a ton of cool people, and it was a lot of good performances there. And obviously that was my first cup win, so I was super excited about it. I won it with a North Genetics strain. North Genetics was a brand new genetics company at the time, so all those guys were super fucking excited about it. And honestly, my Beyond Dream Cup was good. Unfortunately, I don't have it anymore. I fucking wish I still did, but that's a sad story too. I don't know if I want to cry on camera, so we can't talk about the loss of Beyond Dreams. But that pheno, I found I popped 3 seeds, had 2 females, and opted for that pheno of the 2. And sure enough, shit, that thing won me 3 of my 4 cups. So out of 3 seeds, you never know, man. Sometimes you just fucking pick a winner. You know what I mean?
So how do you feel about like peer-to-peer pressure as far as like entering cups? Uh,
Oh yeah, that can get a little, it can get a little touchy, man, because I knew some of the other growers in Vegas that have been in certain cups, and I don't want to throw anyone's name under the bus, but there was definitely a cup that I entered that I'm positive I won third on and got screwed out of because of another company that was helping run the event was the 4th place person, and they also had a legal license, so they needed to place in order to get their publicity. It was a patient tested cup though, so you could go through, and there was like 8 or 9 of us that were in this cup, and I knew some of the other growers that were in it. I purposely didn't vote because I was in it, and I even fully admitted that, but I went to the judges table and looked. How it was set up is you had to enter a couple ounces of your weed, and then they had these mini glass pieces that they would give out to everyone that bought a ticket to the event, and they could go through and actually do the judging and judge it. I'm almost positive I got third in that one. I went through, seen what jar was mine. I know which one was Beyond Dream. I know that fucking sweet, creamy berry flavor from anywhere. I knew exactly what jar was mine, right? I get to the end and they say, yeah, in third place, mine was in jar number 5. They say in third place, jar number 5. And then they said this other cultivation center with one of their strains. The strain they were growing was a very deep purpling strain. The Beyond Dreams cut I had was like 80% lime green with like purples and reds that got through the tips of it. So it purpled too, but not like theirs. When they said that and said jar number 5, I was like, they fucking lied. I got someone else involved with that organization later to tell me behind the scenes someone did fuck with things. So it was also justified by someone else that was helping run the event. So that one sucked. I should have had a third place there. But no, things can get very tricky with other competitors behind the scenes. I will say on none of my cups did I ever bribe any judges or do anything fucking crazy or pay any extra money. Some of the cups you do have to pay, like, say, $150 entry fee plus an ounce or plus 2 ounces. But, the entry fee doesn't have anything to do with it. I have heard stories, especially with some of the bigger cups, of people paying extra money to place. In the events I've been in and the ones I've entered, I can honestly say I've never done that. I 100% won my cups just off of my merits and the basic fees I had to pay to enter the contest. As we move on from there, though, the Las Vegas Hemp Fest, it was great. It was a great event. I had a lot of fun. I went there multiple years in a row. The one year they had a big open competition like that, I ended up winning Best Medical Patient Flower for Beyond Dreams. And yeah, great. It's a beautiful cup. Great. In fact, here, we'll tell the story with the cups. So that was this one. This little guy right here. Look at Beyond Dreams, me. Hi, I'm Nathan. So after that one, that was 2016. Then in the winter of 2016, going into 2017, there was another cup that was coming up by a publication that's out of a mix between Los Angeles and Las Vegas called Bus Magazine. They mainly had online publications and some print publications also, but mainly in the LA area. Well, they wanted to have an event, and they had an open entry event for a cup event for weed growers also, and had a gray market weed event along with it, right? And so I entered that one, and sure enough, I ended up winning that one. So that one was a little bit smaller competition, but there still was, I think, like 7, 8, 9 competitors, something like that. And that one I won this cup over here. This one's a pretty trophy too. Las Vegas Bus Cup 2017, best flower. Damn joint keeps going out. So that was a fun event, and that night kind of went well, kind of not. The original venue we ended up getting kicked out of the hotel the original venue was in, that they were setting it up in, because it got way too smoked out, and the owner of the hotels threatened to call the police and shit. So we moved the event halfway through the event to a whole nother location at some dude's house that had a giant backyard. We reset up booths and shit, and sure enough, like 200 some people showed up at his house. There was like 300 at the other event, so it was still a good fucking time, right? So I win that cup with Beyond Dreams. Now, later in that year was the first year that the Jack Herer Cup had a cup in Las Vegas. Previous to that, I know they had one in Amsterdam and a few other places, but I know they had it in Amsterdam. But it was the first year they were going to have one in Las Vegas. And I got a hold of them. Sure enough, they let me enter. I paid my entry fees, went in there, and there was quite a few people involved in this one, because this one had dispensaries, and this one had dispensaries also. I beat out quite a few dispensaries when I won this one in 2016 with some weed grown in my closet, or in my tents at the time. So then this one, I believe, had one or two legal market guys, but it was mainly black market growers and home growers. Now, the Jack Herer Cup had separate categories for home grows and for dispensaries and things like that. And as kind of medical patient, I won the Jack Herer Cup in the medical patient category. Now, what I can say is they judged all of them exactly the same. And both from this cup and from my 2017 Jack Herer Cup, this one's super nice too. Look at all that cut glass.
Yeah, that's nice.
That one I was told that I had, for this one, I had the highest ranking, or second highest ranking score overall. There was one dispensary that had an indica that had a better, higher score than me, but my hybrid ended up second out of everything they judged for this one. And that was out of quite a few competitors. I don't know the exact number, but it was like 30-ish, I want to say, 20 or 30. This one, there was less, and it was mainly home growers. This one was, again, with a lot of entries, but it was categorized different. So even though I was judged the same as the others and ranked within the top 3 of everything smoked in 2017, I won for the patient category. So yeah, that one was a blast too. They had the award ceremony for that one on the Las Vegas Strip at the Hard Rock. They have like this Hard Rock event center, and yeah, that shit was dope. So it's on like a couple stories up on one of the buildings right on the Strip, and there's balconies that look out at the Strip and full bars, and it's a really fun award show, and really, really fun to be a part of. So that was the 2017 Jack Herer Cup. Now, 2018, by 2018, this wasn't going on anymore. 2017 was the last year for these guys. It was like 2014 through 17, these guys were going on. So by 2018, there wasn't too many cups going on anymore. Now, High Times had an event out there, like I talked about earlier. I was going to enter that one. In fact, they were going to let me enter, even though I was a patient, only because I had a business related to cannabis. By that point, I had already made my YouTube into a business and had a legal business license and all that. And North Genetics was going to sponsor me. And for those that don't know, the basic entry into a High Times is $1,000 plus your entry samples and such. So North Genetics was going to help put up some of the money, and we were going to put my Beyond Dreams up in High Times. At last minute, there was a bunch of political bullshit behind it. The city of Las Vegas threatened any legal company that entered the High Times that they would pull their business licenses. So High Times more or less canceled the entire contest. To make that day even worse, like, we had the first day of the thing, and it was great. We had a good time, but by that night, 80-mile-an-hour winds came and fucking ripped apart all the booths, so they canceled the second day. Shout out to Ludacris. Ludacris was on stage in like 40, 50, 60-mile-an-hour winds and fucking did his whole set. Killed it. Half the people had already left. Fucking booths were flying by. Ludacris was still rapping. It was dope.
That's awesome. It's a professional right there. Conditions, whatever, still gonna fucking do it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
it was pretty epic.
congratulations to you, brother. That's no winning four is pretty epic. So fucking
Yeah, I
congrats
got
to
one
you,
more to
bro.
show you. I got one more to show you. Let me finish the stories here, Eagle. So yeah, I couldn't enter High Times Vegas when I wanted to, and I legit think I had a chance. Although who knows? I've heard rumors about bad things with High Times cups, but I think I legit had a chance. That Beyond Dream cut was good. One time I had it tested. It was kind of a beat up old sample after one of the cups. It was the leftovers from the cup samples they sent in for testing, and it got 24% THC with 3% terps. So, I mean, that's not bad weed. But so after that, though, there wasn't too many cups going on in 2018. But by the end of the year, that following November, because Jack Herer Cup was in November, if I remember right, I won the best patient flower for the 2018 Jack Herer Cup. And this trophy is actually, even though it looks weird, this is the nicest cup I have. And the reason this is the nicest cup I have is because for the 2018 Jack Herer Cups, they actually paid Jerome Baker Glass to custom make every one of the trophies. So this is a custom made Jerome Baker handmade glass piece as the 2018 Jack Herer Cup.
Yeah, that's pretty badass. All of them, but that one is in particularly cool right there. Great accomplishment right there, brother. So as Cubs go today, they keep wanting to fucking X out the little guys. Do you think they should be able to play with the big boys or what? If we can pass the same test, do you think we should be able
Yes.
to play with the big boys?
Yes, I 100% think so. Do I think any of the contests will ever let that go through? No, because money fucking talks and the home growers ain't making money for them people. And if you're a business, do you want to compete for a possible cup against 15 other businesses or against 15 other businesses and 30 home growers? When you know the home grower has time to sit there and master his art on a small level and really focus on that one fucking plant that's going. You know what I mean? They don't want to do that shit. That makes them look bad. When people like me win cups out of my fucking garage and the big companies that paid money to get the recognition so they can actually make more money on their weed don't, those big companies with money get mad. And then they take away advertising budgets from the companies that are making the festivals. You see what I mean? So it's kind of a cyclical thing, being that the festivals are a business and the weed companies are a business. It's actually far more lucrative for those festivals to not include home growers. Although I think ethically, we should be allowed to whoop a dispensary's ass all day if they have shitty weed. It is what it is.
I agree 100% right there. I think that's you're right. You're right on there. They just don't want their ass handed to them from town to town. Not that they're not producing. Some of them are producing some good weed. I don't. But I think, like you said, there's just something about the craft grower that's sitting there giving their plant nothing but love, just waiting for that contest. High times. Not nothing against High Times. I've got love for them. They were nice enough to let me be a judge on a few occasions. So thank you for that. But I lost heart for them when they cut out the caregivers here in Michigan. And you kind of talk about a lucrative adventure. I think they lost out here in Michigan when they came through the last time and was like, yeah, we're just taking legal, recreational entries only. Basically, you have to be a big licensed grow to enter the cup. I think a lot of people was like, yeah, well, we're not going. We love your event,
Yeah.
but if you,
Well, and especially the Michigan market is rough because in a lot of other places, like in Nevada, you had small scale home growers, your 12 plants or less that were legally doing it, or you had super big cultivation centers, like some of the cultivation centers I've helped consult for, and some of them one of them I help manage and different things. Like they're not small places, talking 10 to 20 to 30,000 square foot facilities and such. You know what I mean? And yeah, they just I don't know. Like I said, it's a different situation when you're talking business to business. Now, in Michigan, though, you guys kind of had three markets. You had the home growers, like what I was doing on my YouTube channel. Then you also had the caregivers, which were home growers on a mid scale, doing things on a decent enough size that you're making enough money to adequately run your household and sell enough weed to your patients to where everyone's happy and it's still lucrative. And then you also had the mega facilities for those actually doing the dispensary shit. And those actually took longer to get on board in your state. So by High Times coming through to Michigan and saying, no, we ain't fucking with the caregivers, after a while, it was like, well, what the fuck? You just excluded 3/4 of the technically commercial growers in your fucking area. They're just commercial on a small scale in a house, but it's still a commercial operation. So I felt it was the same as them negating businesses. So from my standpoint, it didn't look good ethically because they're excluding both the home growers and the caregivers after a while, but it also didn't look good as a business decision because you're excluding legitimate businesses. That's the way I seen it.
I'm honestly, I have to give High Times a small bit of credit that they didn't double up. I mean, they were getting pretty heavy-handed about the cups, enough to where I think they were almost starting to lose the value. You know, when they hit your state like 3, 4 times a year, how much
Oh
weight
yeah,
does your
like
cup,
in
your ward have?
California, at one point they had three of them in California. They had the concentrate cup. This one, in fact, from this shirt, this was one of the concentrate cups in San Bernardino. Then they had the SoCal cup and they had the NorCal cup. It was like, damn, do you really need three of them for Cali? Yeah, Cali is a big state with a lot of population. I could see two of them there because SoCal and NorCal have such different cultures, especially around the weed community. But like having a third one there and then trying to start one in Vegas, and then it was getting to be a lot for a minute there. I'm glad they slowed down somewhat on that too. But at the same time, during that time, they used to allow the Michigan caregivers to be in it. That's where my homeboy Free Growley won some of his cups. But since then, now the caregiver style, they're not really letting in the game no more. You know what I mean?
Bro, it's an awesome dude. Another gentleman I got to meet along the way in this journey as well. Ah, hell yeah. Well, like I said, I'm honestly surprised they didn't come back through with like a legal and a caregiver cup. Is the way they're going. You know, it'd be different too if they were kind of hitting each state and then kind of narrowing it down to like almost like a semi-final, a general win, semifinals, finals. Everybody goes to a nationwide High Times fucking punch it out, event. You know what I mean? That wouldn't be so bad. That would be pretty cool,
I
but
would
it
like
never
to see
worked like
that
that.
too. I don't, yeah, because it's not federally legal. I don't think, and High Times is a larger corporation. I don't think they're going to do something like that anytime soon. But I would love to see a bracketed competition like that, do all their regional competitions, take the top 10 winners at each one of those regional and have them give a new sample of whatever they want for the finals. You know what I mean? And fucking duke it out. That would be dope.
So Michigan does have a pretty good community in general, as far as this weed community and cannabis community in general. But as what I'm starting to notice more and more as I do these shows night after night, you've done some good work in fucking Las Vegas, my friend. There is a shit. I mean, more and more, I'm seeing like a secondary or the next Michigan, if you will, coming out of Las Vegas area. There's a ton of growers growing some fire
There
in
is. There's a lot of
Vegas
good
area.
growers in Las Vegas, man. I can't say that enough. It is not easy to grow in a desert, and there's a lot of fire ass weed in Las Vegas. There's a couple decent grow facilities that grow some high grades too, but most of the facility weed out there is kind of commercial mids, like most of it's B grade. It's not really that true A grade, you know what I mean? But the home growers there, they be having that fire. Like, whew, there's some good growers. So
That's pretty awesome, man. Yeah, it's a great community over that way. I'm sure a lot to do with your help as well. So you gotta give yourself some credit there.
yeah, I did my best, man. I helped manage some grow stores and grow facilities, put out a lot of content on YouTube. I, helped out a lot of locals in the neighborhood, when I could in Vegas. There's a few of my friends, I helped them build their grow rooms and help, you're right. I did what I could in that community while I was there. And I'm glad to say I was part of a community that grew into damn good growers. So, and I'm not going to lie, it's not like I started it. I know some OGs in Vegas too that were doing things long before I started up. And those guys were pushing real weight and doing a lot of things. Like, the guy that originally shared the forum cookies cut on the forums, that dude lives in Vegas. And I met him through some of the other growers through an old grow store in Vegas. And yeah, so yeah, some old school OGs there been producing fire for a while, but the new generation, there's a lot more people there growing fire now than there was. It was a smaller community growing bigger scale. Now it's more a fuck ton of different home growers throughout the city and some people doing, trap grows where they're flipping houses, but it is what it is. You got to get your money.
What's in your hand? What you smoking at? I don't think I've asked you that.
No, actually, I hadn't even talked about it. I'm honestly still smoking outdoor from this fall. I had a decent batch of outdoor and I didn't sell or get rid of none of it. I just been fucking smoking it nonstop since fall. And I only have a little bit left, but I was smoking some Hammered by Jinx Proof Genetics. I grew here in southern Colorado. It's not trimmed the best, but it is decent bud. Decent structure on it. And also, what else I got here? This one was a fun story too. This all came off of my volunteer plan on my back porch. So I bought this house here in southern Colorado this past February, right? Last year in February. Well, as I'm, fixing the house and things, getting ready to move in, I see a little plant just pop up from the back porch. I didn't drop no seeds there. I didn't do shit. Those seeds were previously there. 3 little fucking plants pop up from the back porch. What the fuck? And it's like the end of March, right? So I figured I'd just leave them, see what happens, see if they end up, growing into the right photo period or what. Well, it turns out one of them flowered early and stayed about this tall and had a little bud on it. I ended up harvesting it and smoking it. And then in the spring. And then the other 2, though, stayed and grew just random ass weed plants and flowered out. So I harvested them. Now I have like a half pound of random ass genetic weed off my back porch. My guess as to the genetics are someone probably was smoking back there and dropped a seed like previous to me buying the house, and then it just stayed dormant right there until they popped up like the previous, because it was a rented property, so the previous renters were probably smoked off the back porch. But there's also a chance, I am in a high hemp production area and everything out here too, so there is a chance that it was hemp seed pulled from a bird. I don't fucking know. I just know one of the 2 plants that ended up finishing, both of them I kept clones of and still have going out in my greenhouse. But the the one of the 2 though ended up growing. That thing ended up growing like 5-6 foot tall before it even started flowering, and I ended up having to bend it down so it didn't pop up over my fence. My wife was mad because every time you walked out the back door, you ran right into a plant and had to jump off the side of the thing instead of go down the stairs because the whole stairs was a plant. So I bent over the whole plant and like planed it outward. And yeah, I probably pulled about 3/4 pound off that bastard. So, and it's not the greatest weed, honestly. It's just mediocre, but I use it for blunt fillers. But I planted some hammered though for good genetics. I had some hammered. I only have a little bit left of the good genetics. This one was some dream fruit, and this one was pre-fire TGA's Mendo Dope. And all those were from my outdoor also.
Nice. Is that what's growing currently?
Yes, actually, I don't have a whole lot growing currently because, like I said, I had been moving a lot. A year and a half ago, I moved from Las Vegas up to northern Colorado, and then I was there 6-8 months, and I qualified for a mortgage. Couldn't afford a house up in northern Colorado, at least to the size and standard I wanted, so found a spot in southern Colorado where houses were cheaper. So I had been moving so much, and I was in a rental up in northern Colorado. I wasn't actively growing up there, but in order to keep my mind sharp, I did do a couple outdoor plants, and I went back to school. So even though early in the, like I told you earlier, when my YouTube was super popular and everything a few years ago, I didn't actually have any horticulture knowledge that was, or experience that I could put down on paper. Since I got to Colorado, though, I did go back to school for that and got a 1-year certification from Front Range Community College directly in horticulture and sustainable landscape management. So yeah, went and actually took some schooling in horticulture. And that was nice. Got to learn a bunch of cool things about greenhouse management and soil management and landscaping in sustainable fashions and picking things based on water needs and a broad range of knowledge. But I took quite a few classes, and since I've been in Colorado. Then since I moved down here in southern Colorado, I was mainly working on remodeling my house. And as it got into the fall, I built a mini greenhouse in the back to extend my season. Now, what I did not do is run an electricity line from my box out to my greenhouse. And because of that, I'm limited to only 10 amps of electricity that I could run safely plugged into my outdoor outlet through an extension cord. So I'm kind of limited on how much heat I can get out there. So I actually had a whole fucking, and I'm kind of sad about this, my last round of plants completely died because I had left out of town to go to Tennessee. And there was a cold spell when I was gone, it got down to about 6 degrees outside. Apparently that was too cold for my greenhouse. It dropped into the low 30s, high 20s, froze my plants and killed them. So yeah, that's not good. Apparently I only have about a 15 to 20 degree threshold that I can do cold wise. So if I get below about 15 degrees, there's a chance my plants can freeze. So I need to find a way to get more electricity out to my greenhouse. The good news is I have a little tent, ironically, the same 2x3 tent I used to have fucking 8 years ago, 9-10 years ago inside my coat closet. I still have that exact same tent, and I had that set up in my greenhouse as a mini veg. So all the genetics I still have alive. I don't have the Mendo Dope because that one ended up getting a good amount of powdery mildew and a little bit of botrytis on it bud rot by the end of flower. So I didn't want to keep the genetics if it was susceptible, because the other plants right next to it didn't get fucking nothing. You know what I mean? Or barely anything. That one outdoor plant, I was able to salvage about half of the plant to save and smoke. The other half I had to get rid of. And I was like, I'm not going to deal with the genetic if it's susceptible, So the pheno I had ended up being susceptible to mold. So I just said, fuck it on that. Now I did keep cuts of both the hammered and the dream fruit and of both phenos of the outdoor plant. I call them Covo 1 and Covo 2, just for Colorado Volunteer 1, Colorado Volunteer 2. And those are the genetics I currently have going. I do have quite a few friends, both in Colorado and around, that are fully willing to give me nice genetics if I just go get them from them. I just haven't been around to do it. And like I said, I didn't finish building my greenhouse on this property until October. End October, start of November. So because of that, I just haven't been in the habit of getting my genetic collection back up. On a good side note, though, I have a ton of good seed, though. I have a bunch of different heirloom seed. I have some new stuff from Medgrower. I have a bunch of old ocean grown stuff, bunch of old North genetic stuff. I got those heirloom paralyzer seeds. So next time I'm in a situation where I have room to do a little more, and possibly this spring in my greenhouse, I might end up popping some more seed and trying to find some phenos. So we will see. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do, but the genetics I have currently in my greenhouse are Dream Fruit from Husky Genetics, Hammered from Jinx Proof Genetics, Kovo 1 and Kovo 2 from my backyard. That's it. That's all I really got going right now.
Well, there's always time for good, genetics to be popped and all that. So, been all around in different places. What's been your most challenging environment so far from where you've been?
Outdoors in Vegas. I used to do outdoor plants in Vegas successfully. That is fucking hard. Just no way
So, do
around it.
you
You're talking 100 plus degrees all the goddamn time with 5% humidity, and you got to keep these things alive. You're constantly using sun shading. You need super aerated soil, and then you like micro fertigate the soil with in order to keep things alive. If your soil dries out in the least bit too much, your plant immediately goes crispy and dies. Like, for example, when I was living in Vegas, there was one time I only had one or two small cannabis plants in there, but I had, like a gigantic tomato bush and a whole bunch of other shit that was producing like crazy, vegetables and shit, in this like 4 by 9 foot garden I had in my backyard. I left on vacation for 4 days and my watering system broke. So instead of it watering right, it was spraying outside of the bed and just going in my backyard every time the timer went off. Yeah, I came back and I think the timer died the day before I got back, but that day it was 112 degrees out with 5% humidity or lower. And everything, the entire fucking garden bed was completely dead. Just one day of no water. And that shit was rough. I was so fucking mad, but I mean, it is what it is. The fucking plastic got old on one of the pieces and it cracked and all the water was coming out and there wasn't enough pressure for the system. So yeah, it killed my entire outdoor garden. So what I ended up doing, and this is what I recommend to people that are in the arid Southwest like that. So if you're in, Southern Nevada, or if you're in Arizona, Western New Mexico, Southern New Mexico, all these hot arid places, what I recommend doing is veg indoors and get 2 outdoor flower cycles. So you veg indoors during the summer, right? And when everyone else in the country starts their harvesting, well, during the fall, when everyone else starts their harvesting in October, that's when you start putting your plants outdoors. Because in Nevada, it stays like 100 plus degrees all the way up until about the start of November. Even the end of September, you hit some days that are above 100, but you don't hit any days above 110, 115 anymore. So you put your plants outdoors in mid-October, late October, and they'll flower and you'll be able to harvest them bitches right around Christmas time. And be able, because it's still warm enough and you don't get any nighttime freezes during that time of the year. So I'd be able to harvest them by Christmas time, and by New Year's I'm smoking nice fresh outdoor bud. Now also at New Year's you start your next round of veg for your outdoor spring flower. You still have a short enough daylight and a warm enough climate season that around mid-February you won't get any more nighttime freezes. Even in Las Vegas, on occasion, you might get a night that'll get down in the 20s when you're in January and early February. By the time it hits, my target date was usually February 15th. I would start looking at the clock anywhere from, say February 10th all the way to the end of February, and whatever day did no longer had any more nighttime freezes, that next day I would put my next round of outdoor out. Now I would veg them inside starting on New Year's, so I'd have a good 6-week veg in there, and I'd have a nice decent sized plant. You put them out in February, daylight's still short enough, but now you don't get any more nighttime freezes. Some of my best outdoor crops were actually spring flowers for cannabis, but you have to get them out during the end of winter. So like, again, you're limited to where you can do that. Some parts of Southern California, Arizona, Southern Nevada works. A lot of other areas in the US, you really can't use that technique. But it was great for me because I had all the indoor facilities in my garage and all my different tents. So I would just, anytime I had extra fucking veg plants in the fall or the winter, them bitches would just get lined up to go out to my outdoor garden and get me a bunch of extra outdoor winter weed, both spring and late fall. So it worked good though.
What, speaking on like just kind of like extra or like possibly like wintertime weed, what are your thoughts on the autos? They come far enough where they're even considered?
Yeah, I think autos are a viable plant for the hobbyist grower. I think they're a viable plant for outdoors in certain climates that have very short grow seasons. Say Canada, northern Russia, you know, um, northern Europe, up there in Scandinavian countries, those type of areas where they do have long day summers. So you get really long photo periods during the day during the summer, and they get decent enough temperatures during the summer to grow cannabis, but their falls are way too short and winter comes way too quick for a typical plant. Those are perfect environments to run your autoflowers on for your outdoors. It fits your environment. They grow well. And if I remember right, Cannabis ruderalis, which is where the autoflower genes come from, is more or less a Siberian plant. That's a genus of cannabis that it was isolated to Russia or Eastern Europe, somewhere in that area. And that's kind of where those genetics came from. But on that note, I have not grown too many autos. I have grown a few indoors also, just for the fun of it. I would put them in my veg area a lot of times, and then just put like an extra HPS light or an extra reddish light or a blurple light over top of them with my white light off to the side, just so they'd get a little more intensity in red. And yeah, I've grown some pretty good ones, man. I grew a few years back, I grew an autoflower amnesia that was pretty potent. Like I would smoke that shit and be really high. I also grew like a lemon Thai skunk autoflower or something. It was a lemon skunk auto crossed with something else auto. And I grew that and it had an amazing lemon fucking taste to it. Like it was really good weed. And mind you, this was 5 years ago. So if they've come better now compared to what I was growing then, and you're in one of those niche environments to where it's useful for you to have auto seeds, say far northern latitudes, or you have a giant extra veg space and you just want to throw some plants in for fun as a hobby, then yeah, I say go for them, dude. I think it's a fun way to experience another type of cannabis cultivation. Now, if you're thinking, oh man, autos are the greatest thing ever, I'm going to switch over my commercial facility to run autos. No, 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 you do not need to do that. You're going to miss out on a lot of production by not having the stability of running uh, the photo period strains and having that consistency in your flower room. So, on a commercial level, no way in hell. On a hobbyist level and outdoor short season level, yeah, autos are great plants. They have their purpose.
So I've heard you mention the old blurples a couple of times. So how does it feel to be yet another kind of innovator, if you will? You know, early YouTuber, one of the first people to kind of like start using the LEDs. Uh, how do you feel that nowadays about the evolution of the LED light? Are they where you thought they would be when you started?
Yes, kind of. Yes. This is where I thought they would end up. I just didn't know they would end up this efficient. Like the numbers are better than what I thought they would be, but I still kind of knew this was the guidance. Like back in the day, I had started well, it might as well explain it. Blurple lights were specific LED lights early in the LED horticulture lighting kind of phase in this last 10 years, say 7 to 10 years ago, they were much more popular. But what they were is red and blue lights and very, very little or no white diodes. So you had almost no green spectrum, but you had a lot of yellow and red spectrum, and you had a lot of blue spectrum. And when you overlap those lights, it would give you a purplish pink light. So everyone calls them blurple for blue, red, purple fucking LEDs. Um, but I will say early on, I didn't know. I was just, I was a small time HPS grower. I'd use 600 HPSs and shit. And, and I wanted to see how it would work. And I used them and I was successful with them. They weren't the most efficient lights. I want to say the first blurple light I had was from, oh shit, I still have the lights too. I modified one and put fucking cobs in it. But what was that company? Grow Blue LED, and it was a 3-watt puck light, 3-watt reds and blues, and yeah, I grew decent weed with it. The overall efficiency was like 1.3 or 1.4 micromoles per joule, though, which is about the same efficiency as a single-ended HPS. So technically, it wasn't really. HPS would massively outperform those blurples at the time. Also, HPS has a broader spectrum, even though they have far too much infrared spectrum. They do have a far broader spectrum, which is a little healthier for the plant. And that kind of evolved into LEDs as well. And once more efficient white diodes started coming out, then lights started being made with far more white diodes and far less of those blurples. Now they only use blues and reds to add to a certain spectrum in a small amount, and almost all the new lighting is made with white diodes of some sort, whether it's a phosphor coated cob or a phosphor coated individual diode. They're still white diodes. And the phosphor coated white diodes are kind of interesting in how they work. The majority of them are actually a blue diode that shines through a phosphor coating, and the phosphor glows an orangish yellow, giving you that white broader spectrum. And that's why they always have a peak in the blues, even with the white spectrum whites. So yeah, I used some of those old blue red blurple lights for a while, and I was successful with them, but they were only so. And then as the lighting revolution came on there, the DIY scene got real big, and there was guys like Grow Mouse and all them that started building their own lights, because at the time it was far cheaper to get the parts and build your light than it was to manufacture the light. There was just a huge upcharge on that market, but there was starting to be companies like Rapid LED and a few others that you could get the direct diodes and individual pieces for. So people started building their own lights, more efficient than some of the others. And then in the last 3 or 4 years, though, the companies have really caught up. Now the high-end lighting companies are bringing you such a better product that is hard, that you're not going to be able to compete with on a DIY level anymore. They're getting proprietary diodes before you can get a hold of them as an individual, and all sorts of things, to where it's still a fun project if you like electrical engineering and enjoy that sort of thing, but it's not as worth your money as it used to be. It's now more worth your money to get a good deal on a good lighting company. So it's, people got away from the DIY, but during that I did a few different projects too. I took one of those old Grow Blue lights I had. I used the original drivers inside it. I took all the 3-watt diode pods out of it, and I rewired Citizen cobs into it, and it actually made the light run 30 watts lower wattage, but my total light output, I estimate, was somewhere around 18 to 20% higher output than what I had with the old diodes. So it was a fun project, and I still have the light. It flowers really well. It always stresses my plants when I veg them, though. I made it way too red dominant. But yeah, fun stuff. So that was kind of my experience going through the LED world early on, is getting to experience things as they were hitting the cannabis market. Some of this stuff was already experimental within the greenhouse industry and things like that. There had been trials of people growing lettuce under different spectrums fucking years ago, with LED lighting, but it was not made powerful enough to be used directly as indoor lighting for cannabis until like 10 or so years ago. And that's when it started to pop up. And like I said, after I seen the first rendition of phosphor coated diodes, like the early Cobbs and the Veros and different things like that, by that point, I knew 100% LEDs were the future. White coated diodes are going to be the future. And they're going to supplement with other colored diodes as need be. And sure enough, that's pretty much where we are. So did I expect we're going to have fixtures hitting 3 micromoles per joule? No, I did not. I would think 2 point something would have been like the best they could have done. But newer and newer diodes come out with more and more efficiency. Some of the newer drivers have more and more efficiency. And now these fixtures are hitting 3 micromoles per joule from, multiple different companies on the highest end lights. It amazes me at the efficiency and the capability of the new LED lighting, not necessarily in what it is, though. Does that make sense?
The LEDs for the newer growers, man, they sure are something nice, man. They get rid of the heat or the heat factor, basically. A lot of them run super cool. And what if you're not venting your tents? They happen to like the plants are happier under the warmer temperatures anyway. So it's kind of a win-win. I think it's gonna despite the dinosaurs behind me, I do believe in the LEDs. All the other tents that are closed up are LED tents, but that ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what I'd say about
That is correct, and I agree with that 100%. That's one thing I do like to say. In the lighting industry, there's a lot of people that like to stand behind their brands and like to talk shit about other brands, and both in H and across technologies too. Oh, I'm a CMH grower, I'm better than the HPS growers, but I don't like the LEDs. And the HPS guys, fuck all y'all, my HPS is the best. And then LEDs, no, I'm way more efficient, look at me on my high horse. I never look at any of it like that. As a home grower, I look at it as, is your garden producing weed? Is it making you happy? Are you producing fire? Then your light is working. Perfect. Yeah, if you want to upgrade to something later and experience a different type later, do so. But if it's done not broke, you don't have to fix it. Yeah, there might be more efficient ways to do it with certain types of lighting, but sometimes there's not. Sometimes the balance, because this is what I like to tell people, growing cannabis is about balancing multiple things for this plant's environment. It's not about, I have the most expensive light, so I'm going to grow the best weed. If you have a super high-end LED, but you're running too cold of temperatures, you're still not going to produce very well, because maybe you're running too cold of temperatures because you were an HPS grower. That HPS light puts out about 15% infrared, which very quickly on a lot of leaf surfaces converts into heat. So under an HPS light, you're going to be 2 to 4 degrees hotter leaf surface temperature than you will under an LED light. So you have to change your environment for these spectrums in order to balance your plant, in order to have the proper metabolic rates. And so I don't think any technology is inherently bad. I think all of these technologies are perfectly capable to grow you cannabis at a rate that is both profitable, both as the hobbyist and in the commercial setting. You can do that with any of those technologies. Now, do I think you're most cost efficient with the newest LEDs? Yes. But again, if you're in a cold environment, you're in Roscommon, Michigan in fucking January, maybe having a couple HPSs with that extra infrared and that extra fucking heat output is what you need to not need to upgrade to a bigger heater, which then ends up balancing your environment better. So you end up with a better yield. So switching to LED in that specific grow room, if you're heat restricted, might be a fucking huge problem for you, because now your plants are going to be way out of whack on the cold side. So, whatever works for you, stick with. And if you have a light and it's producing for you, be happy with the light you have. even if it is crap, even if it's a blurple Mars Hydro from fucking 2010, all right? If it's still growing you weed, be happy about your weed. You are the shit. That's all there is to it.
I can tell you one thing I like about the LADs. They've helped me at least master my environment here a little bit. Uh, I run a dual cycle here. So LEDs run on during the day, HPS at night, both for power reasons and just schedule reasons. You know, it doesn't leave me a big workload at one point in the day. I can space out a little bit here, a little bit there. But I don't run air conditioning here in northern Michigan. You know, it doesn't get that hot during my summer months. And during the night times, it falls to a very comfortable temperature. So I suck in a lot of I have a long room. So I filter and pump in that cooler air into here. So my HPSs run at night during the cooler hours. But if it weren't for the LEDs, I wouldn't be able to pull that off during the daytime because they're comfortable during that warmer time of the day under that in particular light. So without them, my HPSs, or if I were to try to duplicate that during the day with the HPS, run that during the day, it wouldn't happen. So it's a nice balance here, the two different lights, to be honest with you.
Yes, and I've actually met growers that have told me they use those differences in the season specifically and change their lights out from it. Just like you're saying, they'll run their LED during the summer, and then during the winter, because it helps balance their grow environment better, they'll throw their dual-ended HPS back up. You know what I mean? And it'll just, you're in those cold environments, that's sometimes what you got to do. Now me, when I was doing the majority of my growing, I was in Las Vegas where it's super hot and dry all the time. Yeah, I wanted LEDs. I want anything that's going to limit the amount of heat produced in my environment as much as possible, because all year round my number one factor is both heat and low humidity there, especially the low humidity. That's actually harder to fight than the heat. It's easier to grow a plant healthier in high heat if there's also high humidity. When you have high heat and low humidity, nah, man, plants do not like that shit.
As I sit here and look at my 28% humidity currently. Oh, look at that terrible number. 75, 28 currently. Dry
Dude,
right now.
in Vegas, 28 sometimes was my daily high during midsummer in my garage. Like, I would be lucky, and that's with fucking like humidity machines running and all sorts of shit. I would be lucky sometimes to be in the high 20s. Like, it's a mess there. It is a mess. He, I love Las Vegas. Don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful place, and I'm glad I lived there. I do not like the desert heat, though. I am not a desert heat person. I grew up in northern Michigan, man. That was woo. Talk about going from one environment to another.
Can't even imagine. That is night and day right there. Oof. So how did you handle drying in Vegas? That's always a bitch for most growers. How did you handle it while you
Yes.
were there?
And it was very tough. And I will say, on a personal level, I had a lot of trial and error and quite a few fucked up batches on figuring this out. What I found worked the best on a super small scale. So I'm harvesting just a couple plants, a 4x4 tent or smaller. I would get cardboard boxes. I would run lines through the cardboard boxes, and I would suspend the buds in the cardboard box. I would also pack it fairly tightly. Then I would seal up the cardboard box and only open that once, like every 2 or 3 days. And it would at least let me dry about 7 days if I left it in indoor temperature at about 70 degrees, like in a closet in my house. And because the cardboard box would be sealed, the cardboard would slightly let air and moisture out, or especially absorb some moisture. But the majority of the moisture coming off the plant would help keep the humidity up inside the box, which would slow down that drying. And in my experience, if your plant dries in 5 days or quicker, you will every time have that chlorophyll ass hay smell and it'll taste like shit. 5 to 7, 8 days, it starts to break down. You might be able to get a product, but it still might be a little bit grassy. Once you hit 7 or 8 days or longer of a dry cycle at decent humidities, then you can end up finishing it without any of that chlorophyll bullshit ass smell. And I found that box drying method on a very small scale worked just long enough to get me like about a 7-day dry in the desert inside my house. You know, obviously not outdoors. I couldn't put it out in that 100-degree heat. Shit would be dry in an hour. But yeah, that would work inside my house, and I would put it like in a closet in the box so it would kind of hold some of the humidity there. And then after a while, as I was able to get a little more environment control and I moved to a different house where I had a little bigger grow space, I had bigger tents and such, I would sometimes use the box method, and then also that little 2x3 tent that I still have in my fucking greenhouse that I had at the start of my channel damn near 10 years ago. That little 2x3 tent, I used to hang all my weed in there and dry it. So for quite a bit on my channel, you'd see me hang in there. But I also had a somewhat climate conditioned room, and I would keep it somewhat colder and more humid in there. It was hard to do, but it was a little easier to balance that because at least I had a 5x5 tent going, a 4x4 tent going, and a 3x4 tent going all at the same time. So I had enough plant mass in that room plus some humidity machines that it would keep it high enough. And then even in that tent without the sealed cardboard to keep the humidity in, I would be able to usually go about like between 7 and 9 days dry, which would give me long enough to break down that chlorophyll and end up with a decent product. One of the other tricks I would do though is I have just a little 4-inch duct mover fan, right? It only moves like fucking maybe 50 CFM, something like that. It's very slow speed, just a duct mover fan for a 4-inch. I would put that in the top of that 2x3 tent, and then I would have one vent open at the bottom of it, and I would put one of those little vaporizing humidity machines so the vapor would fall right near that vent. So it would slowly pull in the most humid air in my environment. So even if my grow was down in the 30 or 40% humidity, at least my dry tent would be up in the 40s or 50s, and I would still get a long enough dry out of it. And honestly, I think that might have helped me on some of my cups too, because I mean it's real easy to grow dry weed in the desert, and I was pulling out some really sticky weeds sometimes. So it was not an easy task, though. It took a lot of trial and error, and I eventually found processes on a small scale that I was able to finish my weed in a desert and still have good quality. But yeah, not easy.
I wouldn't think so. To cup winning weed in the desert there. It's just another uh notch to how hard that cup was to win there. That shit ain't easy to grow in that type of environment. So shout out to you for killing it. So I guess where are you in your cannabis journey today? We kind of talked about your newest journey. You want to let us in on what you're up to these days?
Yeah, I actually have some rather exciting news I can share with everyone. Now that we've talked more or less about my past, we talked briefly about my present and what I've been doing in Colorado. Um, my next task, I actually just signed a contract today for a commercial hemp grow in Eastern Tennessee. So I'm going to be growing like CBD flower. I believe there might be some THCO flower. I'm not sure. I think they might have changed laws to where they're not going to be doing that. But yeah, I'm going to be getting a fairly decent contract to go run a commercial facility up in the mountains near Knoxville. And I think come this March, I'm going to be in Tennessee running a commercial facility again. So the good news involving this, many of you guys know Horticultural Lighting Group's also out of Eastern Tennessee. They have a side company to help manage grows, and that's where our buddy Grow Mouse works. And I'm going to be working a different facility than Grow Mouse's, but for the same company. So I'm going to be able to get to work with Grow Mouse out there, hanging out with all the horticulture lighting group guys, managing my own hemp grow. And I only have to worry about the cultivation and production. There's whole other teams worrying about the sale of it. They just want me to grow the highest quality premium indoor flower they can on a commercial scale. So yeah, that's my next task is here in a couple months, I'm going to be in Tennessee commercially growing hemp.
You're just getting comfortable in Colorado, aren't you?
Yes, trust me, it drove my wife crazy too. She's like, what the fuck, you just moved me to bumblefuck Colorado just to take a job offer in Tennessee? But with that being said, they more or less came very close to the what I had asked them to pay me for the project, and they're going to give me some decent money to go grow them a bunch of weed. So I'm going to go down there and do my best to grow a bunch of fucking weed. So I don't like look at hemp or THC cannabis as two different plants. Honestly, they're both cannabis sativa photoperiod plants deep down in their genetics. Just they've been treated a little differently throughout the last 100 or so years. Genetically, they're still very much the same plant, and some of the genetics they have and are currently growing in Grow Mouse's facilities and some of the other facilities there I looked at in Eastern Tennessee are amazingly good genetics. Like these CBD flowers are coming out looking like high-end THC flowers who would smell and terps and everything. Shit's fire. Just doesn't get you high. It's all CBD medicine and shit. So it is what it is. Although I will say the one facility they had running was running some THCO flower and Bordeaux, I believe was the name of the strain. And it had a decent flavor to it. And you could get a little buzz off of it. It wasn't as potent as Delta 9 THC, but you could feel it, man. Me and Wolverine smoked a couple blunts of it and we could feel a head change. But I mean, me and Wolverine also smoke a whole fuck ton of weed. So who knows?
Nothing wrong with smoking a buttload of fucking weed, that's for sure. Real quick before I get too far into the hemp subject there, shout out to you and your missus there. You've managed to know when to fucking call it, I've had enough for now with the YouTube bullshit. Home life is more important. You really know when to need to kind of keep that balance. And like I
Oh
said,
yeah.
shout out to her being the old lady or wife who I'm not sure. I'm sure it's your wife, correct? Yep.
Yes, I'm very much married. I'm married to a
There
beautiful
you go.
black and Puerto Rican mixed woman who was born and raised in Northern California. She's a wonderful person. We have two wonderful kids as well. I have a boy and a girl. They're 5 and 7. So I have a wonderful family. And yes, the last couple of years that has been a lot of my time. I've been my wife also has a career and has a degree, and she's been more or less holding down some of our family income while I went back to school and mainly raised the kids since I've been in Colorado. So that's another reason, yet another reason why I haven't been fully growing. But I'm really excited to get on this team and start growing commercially again. And I know I'm going to be able to help their team and progress their team from where it's at. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I do. I love my family. I think family life's one of the most important things that's between YouTube fucking with me and me my kids getting older. I felt it was very important. I took a step back from my social medias, and that's more or less what I've done the last couple of years. But now with that being said, I'm going to run a bunch more weed, and they have no problems with me showing off some of the grows on my social medias and doing other things involved like that. So as I get into the commercial projects, I'll be make sure to keep at least some of you guys along, probably through my Instagram.
That's awesome because on their end, it's not easy being the wife, girlfriend, whatever, in other instances, not yours, but uh, of a grower slash YouTuber content creator. It shit takes up a lot of time, a lot of time. And it's not always easy to balance the two. So you've managed to make it work. That's why I wanted to give you that again, the respect
Yes.
and
Now,
to introduce it.
I do appreciate that, but I will let you guys know behind the scenes, it is like all healthy marriages. My wife cusses me out all the time, consistently. All right. That's completely normal. That's just how it works.
All right, back to the hemp. Back to the hemp. Uh, is there anything that in particular you're excited about with working with the hemp? I'm kind of myself think I'm a little excited about the possible terpene hunt that might come with hemp. Your thoughts?
That is honestly a very intriguing and interesting prospect. And in fact, one of the gardens down there we looked at, Flow Gardens, they do a lot of different seed runs of different smokable flower hemp, and they have all sorts of different genetic things going on. That I mean, it's a different company than who I'm going to be working for, but they work alongside us on different projects. So those are some genetics that through the pipeline I might be able to get my hands on as well, for the facility, not for me, for the business. So I got to differentiate there. It's not like I can just take them to my house and have them, you know what I mean? That's all business assets. But with that being said, yes, I'm excited for that aspect. Also, I'm excited because the company we're working for, we're building these out as indoor production flower rooms with very little like set aside. Like these are made to be the same as THC cannabis flower rooms. And that's with the thought that eventually Tennessee will be legal. There's people working on legislation documents and everything right now. And next time there's an election cycle, there's a very good chance that Tennessee might become legal. So if I get into some of these hemp grows in what's technically a yellow state. It's not a fully red state. They have some super restrictive medical laws that are like only certain edibles and only for cancer patients or something. So it's like, I don't know, if you had to color code between red being completely illegal for cannabis and green being good, they're a very strong reddish yellow. You know what I mean? And but there's very good chances that's going to be changing soon, and I might be able to get my feet in on some of the ground floors of these facilities that are going to be 100% prepared to just switch clones and keep running for the medical industry once it starts up. So for the long-term perspectives, yes, I'm going to be growing hemp for the next year, maybe the next two. There's a very good chance that I'm going to be on the ground floor of some very big grows in that part of the country after that point, not with hemp.
So why does the term indoor hemp surprise me so much? Why do I associate automatically when we talk hemp?
I
Why
think
do I
it's
associate it with outdoor?
I think I can somewhat explain this because hemp traditionally, we've changed the product of what hemp was. All right. Hemp traditionally was a fiber product. We grew it for seeds and fibers, seeds to make hemp seed oil with, and then two different types of fibers, the pith fibers for, you know, whatever, you ground them up and you can make hempcrete and other various things. And then the main product was always the outer fibers, which are the ones you can actually use to twine and make rope and cloths and that sort of thing. So traditionally, hemp was grown in super mass seeded fields. You did not differentiate between the males and the females. You actually preferred more males because they would grow up faster. And then they would harvest the plant. They would just, every 2 inches would be a new plant, and it would just be solid rows of hemp. And they would harvest them for their stalk mass in order to get the fibers out of them, both the pith and the fibrous pieces out of them. And then the majority of the field they would harvest 3 to 4 weeks into flower as soon as they finish their flower stretch, because you would have a better differentiation between that pith and that outer one without the stems hollowing out yet. So you don't have the center pith wouldn't completely hollow out like a lot of the times it does through later flower. Therefore, you end up with more fiber mass. So traditionally, for hundreds of years, that's how we cultivated hemp. There was, you know, very little of it was cultivated for medicine and for THC medicine. Almost all of it was cultivated for fibers. And we always thought of it as a big farm agricultural thing for hundreds of years. Only until recently have we started differentiating the other cannabinoids that don't get us high and found we can grow those in hemp strains and skirt around regulations. So now we're finding cannabis sativa in hemp strains that just grows CBD with very, very, very little THC delta 9. And we're able to grow it legally because it doesn't grow the delta 9. but those oils are finally in a marketable position to where we can sell those flowers and sell those oils for, not quite the same as THC prices, but much closer now. And back in the day, it just wasn't marketable like that. We didn't have the knowledge about that information. So everyone thought about it as a big agricultural fiber crop. Only until the last 10 or so years have we been thinking about it as an agricultural oil crop that we're actually trying to get the cannabinoid oils from.
So will we ever get back to that? I mean, we've come so far to where we're using pretty much the whole plant for everything these days.
I want to say yes.
Oil extraction.
I want to say yes, but there's going to have to be a big change in the construction industry, and in the cost of sand is going to make a big difference on that. One of the main things you can use the inner pith for with hemp is hempcrete, and there's ways to make very strong hempcrete concrete that's somewhat long-term biodegradable, but when you protect the wall with sheeting, weather wrap, whatever, it can last just as long as concretes. But the thing is, sand is so much cheaper than hemp pith. So it's cheaper to make traditional concrete right now than not. The problem is there's only certain types of sand you can use for concrete. If it's too smooth of a sand, then you're not going to be able to use it. It has to be a rough edge aggregate sand in order to make concrete. So there's only certain places in the world we can mine those sands. As those deteriorate, hempcrete's going to become a far more valuable product. And when it does, I can see the return of industrial fiber and hemp production farms as compared to oil production cannabis. Until then, you can get so much more money out of growing CBD hemp than you can out of growing the fibers that it's not worth growing on the mass production scales. But it still is. Don't get me wrong. In many countries, it still is. And that's why you can still get hemp seed oil products, and you can still get hemp cloths and hemp t-shirts and all that shit. That's usually hemp fiber production plants. That's not extra fiber that came from CBD plants. Okay? Does that make sense?
Right on. It does. It does. I love me some hemp clothes. Super comfortable. Super comfortable. So what are some of the other benefits that you think you'll see come from the hemp market here in the future?
Well, long term, I see a lot of medical benefits coming from the hemp market. There's a lot of hemp strains we're using to isolate certain cannabinoids, and then the extracts of those cannabinoids can then be much more pure and easier to distill out in higher quantities and qualities. And that in turn will feed more research from medical industries on cannabinoid therapies, both on how to use multiple cannabinoids for certain things and isolating cannabinoids for certain medical problems. Again, I'm not a doctor by any means, so any aspect beyond that I wouldn't have much understanding to. But I can see us using these hemp strains, like I said, to isolate cannabinoids, so that way doctors and scientists can extend their work into cannabinoid therapy.
I'm kind of excited about that aspect about it, the individual cannabinoid extraction. Brown Guy 420, I think, was the first gentleman that I talked to that was in full swing, doing something with that. I think that is completely awesome. I talked to a great lady, Pearly Baker, that was on the other night, who is doing edibles, and her oil is kind of the same way, patient by patient. Given that one-on-one attention. I think that's awesome that medicine in the future can be geared more personalized like that. Oh, just a simple questionnaire filled out with somebody, a knowledgeable somebody mixing personalized cannabinoids for you is completely awesome.
Yes, and I do think in the long term that might be something we're going to see come to the medical market, but it's not going to be before there's federal legalization on THC. It's just not. I I don't see researchers and doctors putting forth or having the ability to do that kind of research as openly until we declassify cannabis on a federal level in the United States. So even though that's coming along and the hemp is help projecting that market quicker because those compounds aren't restricted or as restricted as THC, it is it is still somewhat of a taboo subject in the research world, and from my understanding there's still a lot of people that won't fund certain projects if they're based on cannabinoids as compared to based on other things, whether because it hurts businesses or whatnot. But again, that's starting to talk beyond my knowledge level. I don't have any corporate knowledge of the pharmaceutical industry, so I can't say one way or another, but those are some of my feelings on it.
You know, as we're speaking, I was almost horrified with the thought of that being almost a catch 22 or the demise of like plant-based medicine as far as cannabis goes. Once we've unlocked all the cannabinoids and can individualize them, we don't have the argument that it takes the whole plant or the entourage effect to be pure medicine when we're individualizing cannabinoids like that.
Now, I do also think there's always going to be a market for smokable cannabis. I think it's going to be much like the cigar market for tobacco, where there's your daily smokers, most daily nicotine addicted smokers smoke cigarettes and smoke them consistently. But there are some nicotine guys that like a cigar once every couple days or once a week, and they get big fat expensive stogies and spend on certain brands and varieties of tobacco, and it's a very big connoisseur market. And I can in the long term see smoking cannabis coming into that type of connoisseur market, both with our current hemp and with our THC strains. I think there's always going to be a market for high premium quality smokable CBD flower. There's going to be a market for premium indoor smokable THC flower, especially THC flower. But I think in the long run, it's going to be a very niche part of the cannabis industry. I think in the long term, the cannabis industry is going to be more, like I said, a mix between needing these fibers and needing the medicines for actual medicine creation. So I think a lot of the products are going to end up sold to the pharmaceutical industry, and some of the products are going to be sold to construction manufacturing industries, and then a smaller portion of it is going to be grown in craft amounts for people like you and me that still want to be able to smoke. That's where I see the long-term cannabis being.
How do you feel about legal cannabis, federal legal cannabis? Do you think there'll be another roll of the dice as far as regulations go that knock down a lot of big corporations and small guys? Or do you
Yes, I
think
think
they'll
it's going
just
to
slide
be,
in,
if we have to deal
be
with
like, let
anyone
me
that's
have
in
your money?
office, if it happens anytime soon and we got to deal with anyone that's in office now, yes, it's going to be completely massively overregulated no matter which fucking major party leads the charge on it. Um, I think if it's led the charge by Republicans, it's going to be, and mind you, from this point of view, I'm a nonpartisan. I have a tendency to lean socially slightly left. I also have a lot of things in me that's lean very far right. Like I'm very strong gun advocate and things along those lines. At the same time, I also advocate for a lot of weed and like I kind of like a lot of Bernie Sanders thoughts on health plans and shit like that. So I like some of the progressive left shit, and I also like some of the far right shit. I'm kind of stuck in the middle, nonpartisan. And when I look at it from a federal legalization point of view, I think Republicans would set it up in a way that I think they would do better on a tax structure for it, but I think they're going to be shadier on how they like fuck over home growers and stop and set up crazy amounts of regulations so very few businesses can get in on the money. Now, if it's ran by the left, I think it's going to be a little more open with social equity programs and things like that so different companies can get in on it. But then I think it's going to be massively overtaxed and overregulated to a point where the black market's still going to thrive fucking crazy. So I don't think our government, no matter who's in charge, is going to fucking do it right. That's my honest to God opinion on that.
Still, I agree. Definitely a bumpy, worrisome road ahead. That's for sure. And I'm actually, I honestly, I say this time and time and again. I love smoking cannabis. I enjoy using it. I'm definitely a medical user these days, more so than a recreational user. I like to think for sure. But I think the most municipal side of cannabis is actually the cultivation side of it. That one-on-one that can do part of it when you finish cultivating the plant and you're using your medicine. There's nothing better than that feeling of, man, I fucking did this. You know what I mean?
I agree. And that's one reason why I also have a problem with both parties, because no matter who regulates it, they're still going to regulate my home growing. And I personally feel I should be able to grow as many goddamn plants as fit in my backyard. I can do that with tomatoes. I can do that with whatever the fuck else I want. Why the hell can't I do that with my cannabis? That's one of my number one gripes. But I because I got popular being, helping home growers and kind of, winning cups on behalf of home growers. And I kind of have that feeling like the individual right, when it comes to cannabis, I truly feel like the individual right should supersede all. And we should not be regulating people from growing their cannabis at their house. They should be able to grow it out in the open in their fucking backyard without a fence. Perfectly goddamn fine. That plant's not going to kill anybody. I can grow a fucking datura in my backyard, and if the wrong kid gets into it, it can kill them. That won't happen with cannabis, but it's got to be regulated where I can only have 6 plants or 12 plants, depending on the fucking state. It's got to be behind lock and key. Like, who the fuck is this shit hurting? Y'all causing some goddamn problems for no fucking reason. Let me grow my goddamn weed. That's the way I see it. And then the only way it's going to be profitable for corporations, because it'll be so flooded everyone's going to have the shit, is if they do run it on massive agricultural, using newest technology in agriculture and doing it on large scale. At which point, again, I think being able to have home growers, it allows a better opportunity for the craft markets and for those that truly enjoy growing it as a hobby. And it can allow the big booth manufacturers just to make the oils for the medical industry and everything else that's going to be needing it in the future. But yes, I think it's completely asinine that there's plant limits and restrictions on growing cannabis on your own private property in any aspect. So, and that's one reason
They're
I will never agree with either party.
they're still treating it like a criminal, basically. Like it's illegal. Oh, like you're saying, oh, how you can only have so many of these. We got to limit this bad boy. Too much will get out of control. They don't even, it's not even just a limit on plants, but it's in some cases a limit on weights that you can produce. So even if you went, okay, I'll take your challenge. I'm gonna grow 6, but I'm gonna grow 6 of the biggest fucking best plants you've ever seen. They want to penalize you for being extra good at what you do in that aspect as well.
Yeah, it don't make any sense to me. So I do understand regulations on the sale and distribution of it. I don't understand regulation on the home growing and personal consumption, gifting to friends. I don't understand regulation on that at all. From an ethical and moral point of view, it seems like a failure of our government for the last 100 years. And even though we're switching towards legalization now, it's still a failure of our government by not respecting the rights of the people to be able to do something safe on their own property.
Kind of touching back a little bit, man. I got to give you and everybody that superseded you up until today. It might have been a closet grow that, in your opinion, that you started out with. But realistically, it's kind of like I said, the can do attitude of, you guys were going, hey, you guys, you can grow here. You know what I mean? you don't need a big, to do. You can grow your cannabis in a small space like this. You don't need, a big area, all that. Just grow your shit. Basically, that's the way I think it myself and everybody else will say it. Just grow it. You don't need a huge area. So, I got much
Yes.
respect for you guys showing everybody how to do it, the small spaces that, you know what I mean? Just do it. That's the
Yep.
important thing.
And experiment with it and have fun with it. Just understand you don't, especially on a small scale, if you're growing it only at your house just for your consumption, experiment as much as you can because that's going to help you learn. If you're trying to grow weed to make money, though, that's a different aspect. Then you need to focus on what you can do best that produces the best yields and for the product you need for that market. So there's two different mentalities here, but like when you're a fucking home grower, yeah, pop a different seed every fucking other week, run different genetics, go run a fucking hempy bucket over here and a 5-gallon DWC bucket over here and just see what the fuck happens. Like, do those experiments and you're going to learn a ton real fast. But then once you're given the opportunity to do things at a commercial scale, and as someone that's done things at both, I've helped out both commercially and most of my career has been promoting home growing. There is a different mindset to it, and there is a different type of production that's needed in order to do things from a business oriented point of view. So make sure you learn everything. And even running commercial gardens, I still prefer to keep a small home grow just so I can be doing these experiments, just so I can continue to focus on different things that can expand my mind in the cannabis world or things that I'm curious about and I want to see. There's some things you can learn and read about that until you see it, it just doesn't trigger the same. And do those things on your own time, not on making money time. But those projects are some of the most fulfilling you're going to do in your life, if that makes sense. Like you're going to make money from commercial cultivations. You're going to be fulfilled and you're going to learn and gain more knowledge from those hobby grows.
So you've managed to keep yourself pretty hungry with your cannabis growing career so far. Do you think that you'll hit the almost same plateau as some of your other peers that started with you? Do you think you'll hit the breeding aspect of it at some point?
Hit up breeding, you asked?
Yeah. Do you
Maybe.
think you see?
I
Yeah,
I don't
someday.
know. I honestly I see myself leaning more towards the commercial aspect of things and doing bigger and bigger facilities. A lot of my experience, especially as I was managing different uh, hydro stores and things, I was purchasing manager at GrowGen for a while in Vegas and some other different things. I got to learn a lot of the equipment end of commercial cultivation as well. And some of my more current assets, knowledge wise, have been leaning that way. So I see myself running bigger and bigger commercial grows. I also see myself always keeping a small home grow in some facet, whether that's a small greenhouse or a small tent or outdoor runs whenever I can get them in. I will always be doing that. I can I can definitely say, but I think my future is in commercial. To tell you the truth, I've gained a lot of knowledge professionally in it. I know that's what I want to do for a life in order to sustain my family, income wise. And now that it's a legal career, and I'm not going to be back in fucking county jail again like I was as a kid. Like I'm going to do things and make money at it. That's what I'm going to do. So that's one of the reasons I'm going to Tennessee, to help these guys straighten things up and kind of give them some of that home grow love to a commercial size and hopefully be able to produce some fire product. So
It's a beautiful day that we've been able to come full circle with cannabis and actually be able to pick our heads up and be proud of what we did, what we do. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful time. So I can't help but notice a little bit of the irony here. We talked earlier about like on a competition level, there, uh, the big guy and the little guy. So when you're kicking our ass on the commercial scale, are you gonna let us in at that cup? Are you still gonna win it? Are you gonna accept the challenge that we were talking about earlier?
Oh yeah, well, see, I also plan on keeping my life focused on horticulture and growing plants. All right, I don't plan on being the big businessman behind a lot of these projects. That's not what I want to do with my life. I want to be in the garden. That's what I love to do. That's what I've learned about. That's what I know most at this point in my life. So I I'm not going to be on the business side making those decisions. Now, if I see a contest that's coming that I can enter, yeah, I'm going to definitely try to enter those contests on behalf of whatever company I'm working for. And I think that'll be definitely fun in the competition. Now, what I will say is you're not going to see me at the competitions talking to the people like, you shouldn't have the home growers in here and fucking doing all that shady shit. That's not going to be me, never. I'm just going to be focused on growing the goddamn weed. So, and mind you, there are some cup competitions and everything for like CBD hemp flower and everything like that. In fact, High Times just had one recently, and you could win, like a nationwide contest, but with hemp flower. So, you know, there is things to do on that side of the cannabis world too. So maybe I will compete in some of those things. Maybe I won't. All I know is the facility I'm getting into is a beautiful property up in Appalachia in Eastern Tennessee, and it's not huge, but I want to say it's like 4,000 or 5,000 square foot of grow space, mini rooms. I think each room's like 20 lights, 15 lights, something like that. But there's 6 or 8 rooms that are all lined up. But it's just the way the building's shaped. They kind of had to do a lot of small rooms as compared to anything bigger. It just didn't make as much sense. But when I was down there, it was about 80% of the way built out, and they just had to finish a few things. So I'm not, the company I'm with is not involved with the actual build out as much. We kind of have some specs and get to tell them what would be best for the build out, but we're not as much involved in the build out or the property. We're just involved in managing the grow and doing the consumables. So we take care of, what we're actually going to be using for the grow, all the nutrients and soil or rock wool or whatever we want to use. I believe I'm mainly going to be using rock wool, but yeah, so that's kind of how it works. So they're most of the way through the build out, and then by the time I get there in March, the facility will be completely ready, and we'll start filling it with plants, and I'll just start taking over all the SOPs for the facility.
Nice, nice. So, do you know which type of lighting you'll be using, or is that leading?
Uh,
Ah,
all the rooms, the lights were actually already hung with Scorpion Diablos. So yeah. Well, the rooms they had finished. There, I want to say there was like 4 of the rooms where they already had tables and lights hung, but they still had to do like fans and a few other things, small things. I think it needed dehues and circulation fans, things like that. But most of the room was done, and they were all hung with Scorpion Diablos already.
how's it working with more of a team? The transformation from growing 100% I'm in charge of this to a larger scale and a team, little bit
It
of that.
can be a bit of a transition. I did do a commercial facility that I actually managed while I was in Vegas too, and I ran a facility that had all aeroponic tables, and I had to do most of the fucking PVC work myself. That was a pain in the ass, but it was a fun experience, and we grew a lot of weed in some smaller rooms. It was kind of a weird situation because it was a big facility, and there was a 30,000 square foot license and building, but I did the very first grow that was in there, and they had none of the building built out, but a couple small rooms. The room that would eventually be their clone room and their mother room, we used as veg and flower to just get some profit into the business because they kind of overspent themselves. And it was some Russians that owned it, but they overspent on the project. And so they had this giant warehouse and were having a hard time getting down to actually filling it out. So they hired me on to run these small rooms and flip it. But I also got hired on by the guy that owned the patent to the hydroponic tables. So I technically worked for him and I managed the grow on his behalf. And then the people that owned the grow in the long run hired someone else to fill out the rest of the 30,000 square foot. So I ran like 2 flower runs in there and built this hydroponic room, and it more or less just gave them enough cash to keep floating until they could get someone else to fill it out. And I don't know why they didn't. Actually, I kind of do. It wasn't, they didn't want to fill out the whole facility with those hydroponic tables after we ran them, even though we had good numbers. They didn't want to do it that way. The other guy they hired on wanted to do it Rockwool. And because I worked for the guy that owned the tables, I didn't have a say to say, look, man, I'll run that bitch Rockwool or Coco. Like, let me decide. But so I didn't have the right to say that. I more or less had to go on his behalf of, if they came on with the tables, then I would come on as the cultivator to continue running these tables. And they opted not to use those tables. So it was more about the technology I was using than me as a cultivator on why they didn't use me for the bigger project. But yeah, I was working on a team there. There was a couple other people that were in and out with it. The guy that ran the tables, and then actually his father used to own a farm in Belarus and during USSR days, and he used to come in and help me with the grow and shit. Usually he would just change a bunch of nutrients and not write anything down in the log books and drive me crazy, but super nice guy. Super nice old Russian guy, Belarusian man. But yeah, they were actually really nice people, and it was fun working there. It just, like I said, because of the dynamics of how I worked there, I wasn't able to continue on with the facility. And yeah, that was my first time running actual commercial operations, though. And I was in the metric system and had to do all that shit completely with the Nevada state law. So running hemp in Tennessee is probably going to be easier than getting a facility up and running from nothing last minute in Nevada. That's the way I see it. I should be able to get this done all right.
So I'm a little bit curious. As a grower, I know that if I hadn't quit cultivating the plant at one point or another, I would have that itch, especially if I were still going to school and learning more and more about cultivating and horticulture. Uh, have you come up with a number two that you plant that, or something else that you enjoy growing? As a number two, did you grow something else in
Oh,
the
dude,
meantime that kind of filled the void?
I grow a bunch of different things. In fact, I've a bunch of different house plants, and yeah, I really like the peperomia house plants. I really fucking like. Um, I also I like vegetable gardening too, so I usually keep at least a small veggie plot every year that I do for outdoors. Like, I I like plants in general. I like horticulture. You know what I mean? It's not only a cannabis thing for me, but cannabis is my first love and my main entry into horticulture. Since then, I've expanded into most types of horticulture. I've even taken some college classes in agronomics and agriculture just to learn things on an even bigger scale. I've also taken like soil classes, I've taken landscape classes, and I don't plan on working honestly in landscaping, but I really enjoyed learning the different aspects of how you would grade landscapes, how you would set up different irrigation systems for different water zones, and how you could pick out sustainable plants in order to match these water zones, to build certain things to match environments. And like a lot of those things I learned, I think were invaluable to my knowledge base and to keeping me happy and learning and expanding my knowledge of horticulture, even if it's not something I plan on doing professionally. You know what I mean?
Well, isn't it Leighton Morrison who's been on the show? Uh, Same thing. He was a landscaping, uh, and all that. What he learned there is directly applying with his layering of the soil in cannabis cultivation now. I mean, if you don't open these doors and flip over some stones along the way, you see how that shit directly applies to other things. Some shit is just transferable to cannabis and other shit. So hats off to you for opening doors, bro.
Yeah, and it's transferable back, like you said, man. Like for quite honestly, I learned a whole lot about soil sciences in the last couple of years, and actual outdoor mineral soil and how it cycles and what it's made of, and how the bedrock below where your soil's from actually can determine some different properties of the types of clays and the types of minerals that are going to be in your soil and how those are affected, and water movement in soil and different types of humidity environments. And like there is so much to learn about soil on a mass scale, and I would highly recommend anyone that ever has a chance to take a collegiate level course in soil sciences, please do. It is so amazing, and then it helps you understand like how you could help manage growing cannabis both on an agricultural scale outdoors or even on a small scale, like but growing in the natural earth and still being able to get a large healthy plant no matter what type of soil type you're in, and knowing different ways to amend it. And there's just so much to learn, and it's a beautiful science. And like I said, it's all transferable between horticulture and agricultural difference, and the sciences that link them together can be very entertaining. So yeah, I'm like I said, I'm happy I've learned a lot about that recently, because I really focused a lot of my early learning more on direct plant botany and how that plant botany affects cannabis, because well, I always wanted really good fucking cannabis. So, and now that I've broadened my thought process a lot more on that, I look a lot more at soil systems as sustainable environments, and it gives me a lot broader and better and more beautiful look at nature, I feel.
So we kind of talked a little bit earlier, mentioned anyway, on how people hold steadfast to uh, what they're doing. The LED grows, HPS, CMH, and back in the day when you were at, probably we'll say the peak, Grow Two Round Table and all that with the YouTube. Uh, the
Yeah,
big
again,
argument there was
2017, 2018, I was actively winning cups on the Grow Tube Round Table, all that shit.
how do you feel about the biggest argument out of our division, I think, from back in them times was what? Salts, no-till, organics. And as I
Yeah,
think we all see it, how do you feel about how all that shit
guess
played
what?
out till today?
They're all right.
Yeah.
There's
But
with cannabis, there's no fucking what's the expression? There's more than one way to skin a cat. With cannabis, there's more than one way to grow a healthy plant. Um, from to massively oversimplify things, I tend to, in my head, group things into like four different groupings, right? Like water culture based, straight hydroponic, synthetic, usually direct synthetic growing. Then there's hydroponic inert media growing, which would be rock wool, cocoa, peat moss, but with synthetics usually. And then what I like to call simple organics, which is more like a turn and burn organics, thinking about putting Fox Farm Ocean Forest in a pot, adding liquid organics over top, and just letting the microbes just constantly eat at that shit to release it for your plant. But then when you're done, it kind of burns out your soil and you have to massively re-amend it to make it healthy. So it kind of burns out your organics, but you are technically using organic methodology. So then there's that, and then there's more of the no-till thought process on top of that. And again, as like I'd like to reiterate from what I said earlier in the program, as a hobbyist grower, I would recommend you try to grow in all of those styles at some point because they're all super fun. Where I do think some of them fit better niches than others. I think for cannabis specifically, water-based cultures, deep water culture, and things like that are fairly efficient for production. They can be done on a commercial scale and still be very viable. I think what they're best for, honestly, on a commercial scale is like holding mother plants because you get massive fast growth. You can get big old fatty plants in like a 13-gallon recirculating with a 13-gallon, current culture or various other brands. But you can get big, fast growth plants that you can cut a lot of clones from real fast. On a commercial scale, they're fucking spectacular for that. And as a hobbyist grower, I think they're one of the fastest growth methodologies, especially deep water culture, that you can do on a very small scale efficiently. So you can get a 4x4 tent, still run a 4-site deep water culture recirculating system and blow up that tent. Like you can kill it with things like that. And so I think in those situations, it's spectacular. I think for most commercial production, the next tier is probably where you should be because it's the most consistent. It's you can get, especially things like Rockwool, you can get on SOPs that are consistent, easy to be able to transcend to employees, be able to teach people, and easy to get into rotation. So that way you're always producing at a highest quality and highest content. So, things like Rockwool, more on that level. Now for home grows, I always liked cocoa a lot. Some of my best quality plants were always grown under cocoa with a mix of synthetics and organics while constantly adding microbes. And and same thing for simple organics. I think that's usually a little better for home grows. I wouldn't want to run a simple organic on a commercial scale, honestly, where you're constantly just trying to burn out the soil in order to release it on an organic level. You can, but it's not necessarily my favorite. I like synthetic organic mix in an inert media. And then no-till, I think, has an amazing and these regenerative cultures have an amazing place in agriculture and in regenerative practices for outdoor cultivation, for putting plants directly in ground. And like I said, being able to understand how the mineral soil is going to be able to be regenerated on a healthy way without having any leaching problems of phosphates or nitrates, or without having issues with too little carbon or anything. Like using regenerative organic practices on outdoor mineral soil, I feel is a must, and our world needs to do a lot more of that in all of its outdoor agriculture, although it's not realistic that's going to happen. But for indoor cultivation, it definitely can be done. There's a couple companies that do it. A good one actually is Green Life Cultivation in Green Life Productions in Las Vegas. They run straight recycling, what is it? No-till and regenerative beds indoors for commercial productions, and they're very successful with it. But I don't think it's the easiest or the lowest cost to input way to do things commercially either to get a decent product. So yeah, in my ultimate goal to say, though, to the hobbyist grower, whatever way you grow best, you're happiest with growing and you're most comfortable growing, grow. Growing weed is the point, not fighting over whether it's organic or salt based. I've grown a bunch of weed both ways, and all ways are good. I like smoking all of it. I don't know.
That is a very good answer. I will take that 100%. Do you think that back then you would have seen organics pushing to the forefront as heavy as it is today? I think most of us back then were bottle nutrient or bottle guys. I would definitely say organics or soil is leading the way today. Would you
Yeah.
see that then?
Uh, I guess not as much. The only thing I can say I foreseen in the nutrient delivery type thing that I knew was going to come is that people were going to start getting more away from liquid bottled nutrients and more towards powdered nutrients. I learned some nutrients, enough chemistry to be able to make my own nutrient line early on, and I still have a whole bunch of chemicals out in my shed, probably more than I should, including some oxidizers, but I promise I only use them for fertilizer. But I actually made my own liquid organic line, or not organic, but my own liquid synthetic line. And after seeing like how much the shipping of the water weight is and the cost of the actual ingredients when you're buying in bulk and like doing the research on it, I knew everyone was going to start, for the most part, switching more towards powdered lines. And now you're seeing like, quite a few different jacks and other variations of that in powdered lines that are more or less taking over the commercial application world. So I knew that was coming. To say that I knew that a lot higher percentage of growers would be switching towards organic or primarily organic practices, I did not see that coming. I did not. I did meet some really good organic and really good no-till growers early on, though. I have a really good story with Josh Steensland, actually, if you want to hear that story.
Yeah, of course.
So I was in Jamaica, and there was a festival for the Stepping High Festival, and it's a famous festival in the grill for cannabis. And it used to go on for years and years, even without being sanctioned by the U.S. or by the Jamaican government. And the year I was there, it was taking place, and it was the first year that the Jamaican government actually sanctioned and allowed the festival to take place. So there was like Jamaican like police and military out front with assault rifles and shit, and we were like smoking blunts, and the locals were selling weed, and all the cops looked so fucking confused, man. So I go into this festival, right? And I got a couple good stories from this festival, actually. Three to four good, three good stories really from the same festival. One of them's Josh Steensland. So I go into this festival, me and my wife, and it was our honeymoon, right? We got married the New Year's before that, and this was for our honeymoon. So we're there, and I sit down next to this guy with a big beard, and we start talking about cannabis production. And he's going on about how no-till agriculture is the future, large-scale regenerative agriculture in a pure organic no-till regenerative fashion. And I'm telling him like, dude, I really think on a commercial scale it's going to turn more in towards inert media, like I said, like a rock wool production, mainly using rock wool cubes and things, because you can simplify your SOPs, you can kind of simplify the production of things and scale it easier. And we talked about it, and we had a good conversation going back and forth about it for a good half hour. And as I talk a lot, I think I overtalked him a little bit and ran off him and his girl. But needless to say, he left me a business card. I left him one of mine, right? So, and this is long before anyone knew who Josh Steensland was on the internet. So like a year later, he started putting out no-till information online, and it got super fucking popular, right? So then he got some contracts to do like 100-acre farm of hemp and like a bunch of shit, like a lot of reputable shit. And yeah, he did a lot of cool things, and I thought I recognized him, but I didn't know who he was, right? And I didn't know it. So all of a sudden, it's like a year later, I'm seeing and I'm following this guy on the internet, and I'm looking through this box of random shit that was in my bedroom, and some of it was some of the shit I had from that Jamaica/Puerto Rico trip. I went to both islands in a week. But yeah, I ended up picking up the card and I looked at it and I read the name on it and it said Josh Steensland. I said, no shit. The guy I've been following on the internet for 6 months, I actually met a year and a half ago in fucking Jamaica. So
Pretty awesome.
yeah, that
Small
was
world, right?
yeah, small world, man. So that was pretty cool. Another good story from the Stepping High Festival, right? So it was sponsored by Oaksterdam University out of California, which was one of the early on medical universities that started trying to teach people cannabis cultivation, right? With Kyle Cushman and all them. And there's a edible lady that works at Oaksterdam that I forget the exact story, but someone that helped found Oaksterdam used to like her edibles because they were way stronger than anyone else's. Her name is Aunt Sandy. So she got known throughout the Bay Area for selling the best edibles to some of the medical club guys that were needing it for medical reasons, right? So after they opened up Oaksterdam University, they hired her on to run the edible program for it to actually help teach the baking and chef work. So we ended up running into her at the Stepping High Festival, and then she wanted to go get, or me and my wife wanted to go get some lunch, and we ran into her outside of the Stepping High Festival, walking down the road looking for somewhere to go get lunch. And I ended up sitting down with Aunt Sandy on the beach in Jamaica, ordering some food at some beachside restaurant, talking about edibles and differences between different oils and using them for putting, like, it was just such an interesting conversation with such an interesting person that also had a very interesting backstory in cannabis that I happened to meet in Jamaica. So so that's story number 2. That one's a shorter story, but Aunt Sandy's a wonderful lady. Oaksterdam University. I totally have huge respect for Kyle Cushman and the entire crew that was ever involved with those guys in the 90s and 2000s. Like, well done, guys. The third story, seeds story. All right, so I'm at this Stepping High Festival again in Negril. I spent a few days in Jamaica, a day up in near Montego Bay. I actually stayed out of the resorts, though. I was in Red Hall staying with the locals. It was pretty cool. I met a lot of nice people. They didn't understand why some white guy was out in the middle of nowhere in Jamaica. But yeah, they was like, "Ain't you supposed to be in the resorts?" Whatever. There was a bar next to the hotel I was staying at. The place I was staying at was all owned by Jamaicans, though. And I went to this little bar in Red Hall called the Red Stop, I think. It was like a double wide cinder block shack, and she had a fridge full of beers and a little bar in there. And I sat in there, drank a whole bunch of Red Stripes, and smoked a bunch of weed. I met some expatriate dude that had some purple haze there, some other cool shit. But back to the Stepping High. So I'm in the grill, right? Got to pause. I'm back in the grill. I got sidetracked for a minute talking about outside of Montego Bay. Back in the grill, I walked through the Stepping High Festival, and there's booths there. And like I said, this is the first time the government actually sanctioned them to be able to sell weed at the Stepping High Festival. So they actually had booths with weed and shit out there. And I walk up, and there's this one white dude, expatriate from the US, and he was a white dude, but he had long ass dreads and shit. You can tell he had been on the island for years, right? And I look, and he had a bunch of like popular ass strains from the early and mid 2000s, like OGs and Purple Haze and different shit like that, dude. And a whole bunch of them, like, you could tell this guy got all his genetics from the US and came over and helped grow them in the jungle there, and they were trying to sell them all. So I look in the very back, though, and there's this jar of this straggly ass that looks like pure ass sativa shit, but not nearly as pretty as the rest. And it says Jamaican Love on it. So I look at it and I say, "Hey, what's up with that jar in the back? What's that Jamaican Love like?" And this old ass Jamaican dude that was with him in the back, probably 60s, not super old, but definitely elderly Jamaican dude. He gets up and he was super excited, eyes hella big and everything. He goes, "That's my family strain, man." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I remember growing the same strain. We've been collecting seeds from the same field. I was collecting it with my grandfather. We've been growing this for 3 generations." I said, "I'll take an ounce of that." I kept every seed I found in that motherfucker and brought them back with me to the United States. So I ended up with some pure landrace Jamaicans from the West End of Jamaica seed that yeah, I brought every seed I found in that bitch with me, and all the weed I pulled out of it I rolled in one fat blunt, and I was walking around the Stepping High Festival smoking an ounce blunt. So I brought a super blunt wrap with me from United States, and I brought it with me to Jamaica. I brought it in my luggage, and it's a blunt wrap that holds an ounce. And I specifically brought it with me because I knew I was going to go to the Stepping High Festival. I didn't have a plan to get from Montego Bay to Negril, but I ended up paying some locals and some lady, the wife of the guy that gave me a ride from the airport. I ended up paying her to drive me to Negril and back for the day. So it was worth it. I paid her well. But yeah, it was a crazy trip, dude. It was a crazy trip. But yeah, I ended up bringing those seeds back, and I sent some into my boy Jay Blizz from North Genetics, and he did some breeding projects with them, crossed them with a couple things, and then he also did open breeding with them, where he took like 4 or 5 of the nicest looking males, 4 or 5 of the nicest looking females, and did an open breeding in there just to try to open the genetic pool back up, and sent me back some of those seeds. And I still have a few of the original seeds from the grill, a few seeds from Montego Bay, and then some of those open breeding seeds that I need to pop too. But I also grew one of those Montego, or one of the Negril Jamaican Love sativas. And that shit took about 11 and a half weeks to flower out. It still wasn't fully finished, but I harvested it at 11 and a half weeks. It probably would have gone more like 12 or 13, honestly. It was starting towards senescence, but it wasn't done. You know what I mean? And oh my God, dude, that was the most heady sativa weed I've ever had. I used to take that, right? Because it had a really awesome floral scent. Like it smelled like a bouquet of flowers. It was amazing. Is super, super fucking terpy, but really low THC. Like you would have to smoke a bunch of it to get high. So what I would do is roll like 2 to 3 gram fatty joints in the morning, and I would smoke a giant joint of Jamaican sativa and drink a cup of coffee with it. And the energy from that sativa and the coffee combined turned me into a crackhead for the next 4 hours. Man, I will be running around like Speedy Gonzalez and shit, getting everything done. I would have nothing to do the rest of the day, 2 hours in, just looking around bug-eyed like a tweaker. Fucking pure sativa and shit. It was a fun grow though. I didn't keep clones from it, but it was a fun grow, and I still have some seeds up there that I've kept well enough they should be viable. So one of these days I'll have to pop some more again.
That's awesome, man. I love collecting seeds, man. That's a cool story, especially when they're personally gathered like that. They have that sentimental value, extra sentimental value. I think there's something that's sentimental about popping seeds anyway. Uh, you can take in a cut, but from my experience, almost every cut that I've taken in, which aren't a whole lot of, I just don't want taking in people's. I'd rather pop it. But I just don't have the love for somebody's cut or whatever that comes in. The ones I pop from seed, I tend to have that little more, that other ones, it's good, but these are the ones I hand select.
Trust that I fully understand that as someone that popped 3 seeds and found a pheno that won me 3 cups. Like that was my baby.
And that shit's still true today, man. And even I walked out of the grocery store, I was talking to the guy that owned it the other day, and we were talking about genetics. And even as Jodry, fucking, who else says that shit? Fucking, damn, I can't think of his name right now. Burner. Right cup with the right cut will fucking change your life, man. That's some true shit, man. You find that one, there's still a good chance that fucking might change your life.
Yep, did for me. Like I said, that gave me a lot more credibility, and some of that credibility was what gave me the in to not only continue my growth on YouTube, but also join things like the GrowTube Roundtable, and people actually, have the credibility to believe what I said. So, and I'm glad it's helped, man. Like I said, to this day, I've had a lot of people get a hold of me and thank me because of all that old content on YouTube, whether some of it was imperfect or not. It didn't have to be perfect. It helped enough and inspired enough people that I can truly feel like a lot more people are growing because of me and some of my other peers at that time than if we didn't do what we did. And we get that back in thanks. I know I do. I know MedGrower does, and other people, that were producing videos at that time. I get thank you messages every once in a while from people that are, hey man, I learned to grow because of you, and it changed my life for the positive, and for various different reasons. So that's always the blessing, and that's the number one thing that I'm most thankful for in having done that work in my past.
I appreciate it, man. All you guys, like I said earlier, man, help lay the foundation for what I and a lot of other people do today. And I got tons and tons of respect for that. You helped a lot of people grow. And we're still talking about a lot of what you did today. You know what I mean? You're here today. You're still very uh, relevant. Sorry about that. Today. So,
Yeah. And I'm thankful to be a part of the community, and the community helped build me as much as I helped build myself, because a lot of my credibility came from sharing my social medias that couldn't have been built without a lot of the people that are, some of which even in the comments section here watching live today. So I appreciate everyone just as much as they've appreciated the work I've put in. And like I said, I know a lot of other creators in my shoes that feel the same way. So thank you guys as well.
It's bringing up the chat there. You have brought in a couple of people that don't usually frequent the show. I've seen Pedro and Dizzy, who's Pedro's Grow Room, and he's actually been a
Pedro's my
guest a
buddy.
couple of times. He's been on the show a couple of times.
I will honestly say I need to go visit Pedro again soon. He's a good friend of mine, and I need to come out to his ranch out in western Colorado and come steal cuts of his critical kush. No, just come smoke some of his hash and fucking give dude a hug, because I love Pedro. He's a great guy. I've known him for a lot of years. Every time we have the opportunity and are close to each other and can meet up, we usually do, and he has a beautiful family. So I would love to see Pedro again, and hopefully sometime soon. Hopefully before I go to Tennessee, man. I'm gonna be a long ways away. But he's a great guy. I'm glad he showed up tonight.
GML as well popped in. First timer to the channel. Shout out to you. Nice to see you. Check out the show. Pretty awesome. So hell yeah. Thank you for bringing some over this way. Again,
Oh yeah, GML's a
Pedro
good guy
stopped
too.
in before. He should stop back more often. Hopefully you're still listening there, Pedro, because he is a good dude. We enjoy his company as well. So how we doing on time? I just wanted to check in on you. I don't like to overstay my welcome. I like to get it
I'm
back.
currently breaking up another joint. So how about this? I'm going to break up this joint. I'm going to smoke this joint, and then whatever story I'm randomly in at the end of that joint, I'll finish, and then I'll head out. That sounds about right timing. I'm not going to put a number on it. I'm going to put a joint in a story. That's what we're going to put on it.
I like that time scale, to be honest with you. And I'll let you in on a little fun story. And I know, well, I should say allegedly. This is allegedly a truth. Uh, as you know, oh, I get, you can relate. I bet you can relate to this, my friend. Up here in northern Michigan, as far as time goes, our travels are measured not in time, but in duties we need to take for said ride. So I don't necessarily think about like, oh, it's going to take me a half hour. It's a one joint, two joint, three joint ride, perhaps, as
Yes.
far as time.
Yes, I was always like that. In fact, in when I was growing up in northern Michigan, I kind of felt like an outcast because of that, because we'd be completely 100% illegal, and me and my friends be the jackasses that just walk in the store with giant joints in our ears, doing whatever the hell we want as long as the cops weren't looking. Would light up as soon as we step outside the store. People are probably calling the cops behind us, but then we'd just get in the car and smoke drive away. So you know what I mean? I don't know, man. But you're right. I used to look at it like, okay, how many grams of weed do I need to bring with me for this trip? Should I bring my bowl, or should I bring some papers? Or am I going to smoke blunts? Am I going to Detroit to pick up more? Do I have a quarter pound of personal? Do I have an eighth of personal? Like, all those things came into whether I was going to take a trip or not. And yes, I would very much measure things in doobies. I also noticed in northern Michigan too, they do a lot of times people say things are in miles. When you're in cities, they don't do that. I noticed on the West Coast, a lot of people say how many minutes it takes to get somewhere. They'll be like, no, that's 45 minutes away. It's only 10-minute drive across LA, or 10-mile drive across LA, but that's a 45-minute drive at that time of the day. So they say it as time, whereas when you're in northern Michigan, I like to call it north of the tension line, the line between Saginaw and what's that, Muskegon, and anywhere north of there, everything's so spread out. You just say it in miles because you're usually traveling 60 miles an hour anyways, so your miles and your time are about the same. So when I was in Oscoda, if I was going to West Branch, I wouldn't say it's an hour away. A lot of times I'd be like, oh yeah, it's like 50, 60 miles up the road. You know what I mean? I noticed that about northern Michigan, that other parts of the country I've lived, they don't do. You know, if I was going from Oscoda to Taos, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's about 15 miles. But in other parts of the country, because it doesn't quite work that way, it's not direct straight roads. I
Yeah,
don't
it's a
know.
little bit of in betweens here in Michigan. It's kind of funny. The only time that I'm ever hitting the provisioning centers here in Michigan, again, allegedly, is when I've misconstrued my measurement there, and I haven't packed enough with me, so I fell short on my travel or traffic jam, because if said ride is 45 minutes and I figured three joints for that 45 minutes, that's 45 minutes. I'm still burning them three joints sitting there in traffic. I just had fell short on my what I need for my ride. That's all.
Yeah, I think the most Michigan type comment I think I seen involving this was where was that? Oh, Hillbilly Herb said shit, where'd it go? Oh yeah. How long we going fishing for? I don't know. Is 5 joints enough? That's a very Michigan statement right there.
Definitely love our cannabis here. That's for sure. For sure. That's as far as that goes. There should be a sack in the top tray of every tackle box. Just that's just where it stays. It shouldn't even be a joint thing. There should just be a sack, just like tackle. There should just be that bag there ready for fishing. You know what I'm saying? They go hand in hand.
And honestly, it depends on what type of fishing you're doing too. I can get in way more joints ice fishing than I can fishing in a boat. I can smoke a lot both ways, don't get me wrong. But if I'm ice fishing and it's cold out, I am nonstop chiefing doobies.
Yeah, well, that's ice fishing's a pretty slow going type thing right now. You know, you better have a hefty sack there or some blunts. That I would think hunting. Either way, what are your opinions, I guess, on that? Ooh, that's a little 50-50. Are you putting firearms? Are you dangling? Are you smoking in the woods while you're hunting?
I smoke when I do anything. So I don't know. I guess I kind of have a old school mentality about it. Like, even though it's not the safest, say smoke driving, for instance, if I was a teenager and I was in my 20s and I smoked weed everywhere I went and it was 100% illegal and they could search your car just on smell immediately, who the fuck thinks I'm going to stop now? Like, you know what I mean? So I will say I don't recommend people smoke drive if they're not able and capable to control their car in a safe facet. Now, for people that have been smoking for 20 plus years and you smoke every day, all day, it's almost more difficult to get in your car sober than it is not. And I would much rather prefer someone like me or you to probably at least take a couple hits off a joint before driving as compared to none. But again, that's my own personal feelings on that. I'm not a doctor by any means.
Well, we've been slightly vindicated on that aspect of it too. So there's a lot of studies that say that heavy cannabis users are perfectly safe drivers, which is kind of nice to hear that study as well. I like to agree. I've been driving forever. The only accidents that I've ever been in have been either A, someone else's fault, or B, uh, something happened, tires blew out. The one instance, I probably hit something on the highway that I didn't see in the roadway, blew out the two tires on the driver's side, which put me in
Oh,
a
that
nice spin.
sucks.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I think because of being impaired because of cannabis, it's just freak accident. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not chalking that one up.
So I think I got another story for you. I can tell one more from NorCal High Times Cannabis Cup. All right, you'll like this one too, because I figure we'll bring it back to the late great Subcool since we started the show and briefly mentioned him. We'll bring it back to a story with him. So I'm at 2017 NorCal High Times Cannabis Cup, I believe it was, and we were doing some streaming from the Ocean Grown booth, and we had a random camera set up so we could stream on the Ocean Grown YouTube channels whenever we wanted. Any of us that were part of the WeedTube YouTube community, right? So, me and Ninja and I don't know, the whole Ocean Grown crew from back in the day, right? Well, Subcool was also at the Cup with the TGA booth, and he obviously knew who I was because we had already been on GrowTube together. We had talked together, and he started following my medias even before GrowTube because I started to get big from showing off Grow. And me and him have always had some great conversations, never been on bad terms. I love Subcool, I honestly do. But so I show up at the TGA booth and he recognizes me, immediately pulls me in back and gives me a hug and starts smoking me out and showing me his personal stash of some Chernobyl and some other different flower he grew and shit. Like, fucking cool ass situation, right? So later I leave the booth and I go back over towards the Ocean Grown booth and I'm about to take some dabs on camera during the live stream for the Ocean Grown Seeds channel. And I'm in there talking to people. There's quite a few people watching live, like 100, 200 people watching live, something like that. And I'm about to take a dab. Subcool comes walking through the ocean growing booth, and he looks at me and goes, "Hey, Nate." I say, "Yeah, what's up, dude?" Oh, they said NV, but it's like, "Hey, NV." I was like, "What's up, man?" He goes, "You want to try some of this? I got my whole judge's kit from the solvent list." I said, "Yes, yes, Subcool. I do want to try all the high time solvent lists." He goes, "Okay, well, pick which one you want." I said, "Well, what shit? You got them all in there?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "In fact, how about some of these?" I said, "Know which one I want? I want the Cuban growing cookies and cream." Cuban Cuban grower was doing some of the best fucking hash, making straight up 6-star melt hash and winning mad cups all 2016, 2017, 2018. Like, that guy won so many goddamn cups, it's ridiculous because of how good his hash was. And I got to try some of his fucking cup winning hash at the cup he won it in, gifted to me by Subcool live streaming. To make it even funnier, I had an e-nail and I happened to have some Oreo cookies there, and I was already high as shit. And I was like, "Hey, I might as well carb cap the fucking rig with an Oreo cookie while I'm smoking cookies and cream." And it was spectacular. And I'm not going to lie, to this day, I can remember how smooth and creamy that hit was. It was fucking epic. It was epically good hash that was gifted to me by the fucking man Subcool himself. So that was a really good memory of mine.
That is an awesome story, man. Such good memories with Subcool, man. That's why I got you on here. Unfortunately, the anniversary, another unfortunate anniversary, his passing is coming up, and I try to do. I do. I have a ton of more than. I got tons of reasons why I respect Sub. He was a hell of a friend behind the scenes. Moreover, I've got a ton of respect for what he did in the cannabis industry, giving away seeds, helping people out, helping people to grow, and building a community just like this one. So I do a dedication show on his birthday in September. I do something that's geared toward the first year of the show. We did a grow along. I sent Jelly Bean, Agent Orange, and Sangria around the world, brother. I sent this shit everywhere, and then we popped that shit on his birthday for like a grow along. So people that could, if you were a new grower, you could grow along with people that who had more skills, and you could compare, apples for apples, oranges to oranges as things went. Second year, I changed. Now I'm getting ahead of myself. There's an after show that I changed to honor him in the Weed Nerd thing, which is now known as the Weed Nerd World. But on the anniversary of his passing on February 1st, unfortunately, miss you so. I'd like to have you back and hear, maybe have you tell one of your favorite, maybe even if it's that story, some cool memory. You know what I mean? I think that would
I,
be pretty cool.
I got one or two more Subcool stories. I didn't meet him a whole lot of times in person, but I'd been on quite a few live streams with him. I'd met him in person 3 or 4 times, always at Cups though. But yeah, like I said, he knew me and recognized me, and I had talked with him online many, many different times on shows. And one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten from an OG grower was from him too. We were on one of the Grow Tube Roundtable episodes, and he looked at me in the camera and he goes, "NV, what I like about you and your channel is that you have passion in everything you do. You have passion for cannabis that a lot of other people don't have, and I appreciate that." And I think that's one of the nicest things an OG's ever said to me.
That had some. That has some weight there. That has some weight. It mean a lot to me too, bro. So I see you're getting about halfway there, so I should start my goodbye spiels.
Yep,
So
it's about that time.
so basically, I want to tell you about what you've gotten yourself into. You and again, I think Loyalty Organics. I thank him for help bringing you here as well.
Oh,
Awesome
Ty's
dude
my
there.
buddy. We can shout out Ty. He's a good friend of mine from Vegas, and I used to work with him at GrowGen and shit back in the day. That's where I met him, quite a few years back, and we've been friends and kept in touch ever since. So Ty's a wonderful guy. You should all go check out Loyalty Organics. I always call it Loyal Ty because his name's Ty, but same guy.
Well, so this puts you in an aspect where you could probably communicate whatever a little bit more with him. See, basically, this is how the channel works. There's 3 shows on the channel currently, working on more, doing what I can. But there's the spotlight where like me and the guest, me and you talk. And then there is show 2, which is now known as the Weed Nerd World. And that is again another show kind of inspired by past work, the panel side of things. So the Weed Nerd World is only open to past guests. So you've had to do this portion to pop into the Weed Nerd World. And so there's no, hey, can you come hang out? It's whenever the fuck you feel like it. If it says Weed Nerd World, Monday nights, Wednesday nights are Weed Nerd Worlds. Currently, Monday night is mandatory Weed Nerd World. Say it starts at 2 a.m., so it makes it 11 your time. Well, you're an hour back, so 10, I think your time, something like that.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
in Mountain Time currently, so I'm 2 hours back from you.
Wednesday nights they do a West Coast takeover, so it starts at 11:30 on Wednesdays. But other than that, it's a filler. So after me and you are done here tonight, I will kick off the Weed Nerd World to round out the night and take us to the 4:20 mark minimum. Sometimes it goes till 6 or so. It can, but the Zoom link that I sent you tonight is the same Zoom link that I use for Weed Nerd World. And anytime you want to pop in, come talk cannabis with us, hang out with anybody else that's hanging out. We'd greatly appreciate your time, your knowledge, and just the bragging rights that we got to hang out and smoke with NB would be super cool.
Oh man, I appreciate you saying that's bragging rights, man. I smoke everywhere I go though, so I guess everyone gets those bragging rights, right? But no, I do appreciate you having me on though. Thank you, Eagle. I had a wonderful time talking with you. I would love to come back sometime for a more cannabis or more science or horticulture based show sometime as compared to the one-on-one talk and go through my stories. I do love telling my stories though, and I was glad I was able to tell some of my cannabis-based stories to y'all today, and I hope you enjoyed some of my stories. So I've had a lot of fun living them, and I plan on living a lot more outrageous cannabis-based stories. So let's keep this fun going on. Thank you again for allowing me to be on here. Thank you for inviting me, and I apologize. I will tell everybody right now, I fully apologize. Eagle's been inviting me nonstop for a year, like nonstop. He did a couple months he stopped, but fairly directly. And I did promise to be on, and I did want to be on, but I had a lot of different transitions going on. Timing didn't always work out, and I just wasn't. So I apologize both to the viewers and to Eagle for not being on here sooner when I should have been and said I would be. So thank you guys for having me on. And I'm sorry I'm so late.
Oh man, it was worth the wait. And just because it's worth checking out, and I have much love for the guy. There's the third show on the channel is the organic takeover with Smiley's Gardens, and that is once a month, and that is 100% straight talk, serious organic grow. So if you don't come for the talking shit, at least come for the straight organic takeover with Mr. Smiley.
Yeah,
So
like I said, I love all nutrient delivery systems for plants, including organics and synthetics, and fully organic, fully synthetic. I don't give a shit. I will talk it. I would love to. I can't promise exactly when. I do have a lot going on with this upcoming move to Tennessee and straightening some shit in my house before I go, but I would love to be back, man. I've enjoyed your company and I would love to be on a bigger panel show with you at some time. Thank you for the invite.
much respect on the up and up, man. I wish you the best. One tiny last thing before you go, and that is what I like to call the sound bite. At some point, I will use it for a commercial for this episode. Basically, what I'm looking for in my words is, hey, this is Eagle, and I'm on fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 557. You can put whatever the fuck you want before or after that, as long as it carries that in the body. I would greatly appreciate it. I am ready anytime you are, brother.
Hey, this is NV. I'm on Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 557. Super excited to be here and super excited to talk to you guys. So come on out and watch the show.
Thank you again, brother. This has been pretty fucking awesome. I get to check off and hopefully not permanently check off another great person that I've been dying to talk to because I've got a ton of respect for. And I greatly appreciate your time, brother. So
Yes,
have a
thank
good
you.
night, and I hope to talk to you soon, brother.
Yep, appreciate you. Have a nice night, everybody.
For the rest of you guys, I hope to see you guys in a few minutes in the Weed Nerd world. Grab your trays, fill it, and for those of you who are not going to follow over, please remember random acts of kindness do save lives. I'm a living, breathing example of that. Good night, NV. Thank you one last time. We are out of here.